Yo, Atlas speaking, and welcome to part 1 of What If I Was Reincarnated into the My Hero world and gained the Sharingan. This will be the first of many female lead-focused stories on the channel, and I hope you enjoy them. Synopsis. Kaede Aoki was your average teenage girl. Her hobbies including sports, movies, and especially anime. Dying in an unfortunate accident trying to save a cat, she'd meet God and choose where she'd like to live her next life. The answer being one of her favorite anime manga My Hero. But that's not all, she's also taking the famed power of the Uchiha clan with her. The power of the Sharingan. But before we begin, make sure to support the author's work, linked in the description. Let the tale begin. Chapter 1 Meeting God. Third POV. In an unknown space, a girl was sitting on the floor, her head swaying from left to right as she tried to grasp her location. Suddenly, a bright flash appeared before her, and she instinctively covered her eyes for the blinding light. As the light dimmed, there stood a figure of an old man. Gazing upon the young girl, the man smiled and spoke in a soft voice. "Hello, child. I am the god of the universe and welcome to my domain." Hello? The girl greeted awkwardly. "How did I end up here?" Well, the answer to that question was simply, you died. Oh, that makes sense. The girl grasped her chin and nodded to herself. Wait. What? Earlier, Pio. Okay, thanks, see you later, I said while waving goodbye to the cashier in the supermarket I go to every week. Strolling with 2 bags of groceries in my hands, I smiled at another great day. Okay, let me first introduce myself. My name is Kaede Aoki. I'm your ordinary 16-year-old girl living in Tokyo, and I'm a major fan of anime. Right now, I'm watching My Hero Academia, and I'm loving it. The show was awesome, with incredible people with unique powers. How I wish I could meet them. I currently live in an apartment all by myself since both my parents died in a car crash when I was still a toddler, so my uncle and aunt have been taking of me ever since. Don't get me wrong, they aren't those typical abusive step-parents who are jealous of their siblings, no, in fact quite the opposite. They are actually very kind and take care of me as if I were their own. Their children were also very kind to me, and they treated me like I was their sister. They were a caring family that helped me get through the tough times of my parents passing away. The only reason I'm living by myself is that I want to go to a specific high school in Tokyo, so they bought me a small cheap apartment for me to stay in, and they regularly check up on me every week. Now enough of my family, let's talk about my school life. I have a delightful life in school. My friends always told me that I have a sweet aura that makes people enjoy talking. Maybe that's why I'm pretty much friends with everyone in school. Anyway, I have a happy family, a good time in school, and in general just living life. I got carried away introducing myself. Sorry about that. So about my death. As I was saying, I was walking down the street holding shopping bags in each hand, and in the corner of my eye, I saw a white cat sitting in the middle of the highway. Then to my horror, there's a truck speeding down the road. Out of instinct, I instantly ran toward the cat and grabbed it out of the way. Unfortunately, there was a little pebble on the floor. I tripped and landed on the hard cement. By the time I realized what happened, the truck was already right in front of me. I glimpsed into the truck's window and saw the driver asleep by the steering. Knowing that death was imminent, I closed my eyes and awaited my fate. Car crash noises, then everything went black. I felt no pain and I didn't even suffer. Is this what dying feels like? If only I finished season 5 of MHA. I thought to myself. Around me everything was pitch black. I looked at myself, and all I saw was just a little ball of light. What happened to my body? But suddenly, there was a bright white light that illuminated all this darkness. Then I was pulled towards the light. Where am I now? I said in my head and observed my new surroundings. I was in a white room now, and in the middle of it there was a desk and an office chair. Before I realized it, I had already returned to my original body as a white light blinded my vision. When the light dimmed, I noticed an old man with a long white beard and dressed in a clean white robe. "Hello, child. I am the god of the universe and welcome to my domain." I quickly looked towards the desk and chair. There was an old man with a long white beard wearing a white and gold robe. No way did he say God. Like the God? Hello? I greeted shyly. Unable to resist the urge, I asked the most important question. How did I end up here? He chuckled and said, well, the answer to that question was simply, you died. Oh, that makes sense. I nodded. I mean, why else would I be here and meet God? Obviously, I must have died after all. Wait. 10 seconds passed. 20 seconds passed. 5 minutes have passed, and I was sitting there in silence, registering what I just heard. God was patiently looking at me with a sympathetic look. I quickly stood up, slapped both my hands onto the table and shouted, "What?" Chapter 2 Reincarnation? POV So I really died, huh? I muttered as tears began to form in my eyes. "It's okay, everything will be alright," God said with a soft tone. "How can everything be alright?" I screamed. I realized what I'd done. I quickly bowed and said, "I apologize for my inappropriate behavior," as my tears dirted the grand white floor. God just smiled. He stood up and walked towards me. My body suddenly felt warm as God hugged me and gently patted my back. "It's okay. Just let it all out," he said with a caring tone while continuing to pat me. I finally can't hold it in anymore and sob. I don't know how long I've been crying, but I estimated that 1 hour has passed before I finally calmed down. I looked at God, who was still patiently watching me with a kind smile on his face, and I looked at his robe. It was covered with tears and snot. I blushed before quickly becoming embarrassed and staring at the floor in shame. Seeing this, God chuckled before snapping his finger, and his clothes instantly became clean again. "All better?" he asked, and I slowly nodded. He hummed satisfyingly and went back to his seat. Silence once filled the room, and after a while I finally broke the silence. What will happen to me now?" I asked, anxious about my future. God once again smiled and said, "Kaede, you have been a very good person. You didn't hesitate to help people in need. And you always put others first before yourself. You're a very rare case as your soul is very pure. You're not the first person to show up here, and you won't be the last." He paused and looked me in the eye before saying, "What happens now is that you will be reincarnated." He stopped talking and waited for my reaction. "Reincarnate like those isekai animes?" I thought. "Yes, exactly like those isekai animes. You can choose any world you wish for." He read my thoughts and said, realizing that God can read my thoughts all this time, my face reddened like a tomato. "Haha, don't be embarrassed. You will be surprised at how many people think of the same thing as you," God stated while laughing. Hearing this, I felt my face become even redder. Finally, I calmed myself down and asked, "Even worlds from anime?" God just nodded and responded, "I will also give you wishes based on the good deeds you've done in your life. For example, people who do bad deeds get no wish and will be immediately sent to the reincarnation cycle or sent to purgatory, and people who did average in life only get 1 wish. However, judging on what you have done, you will get 5 wishes. God saw that I still wasn't saying anything, just grinned at me and said, "Don't worry, you can take as much time as you need. You can wish for anything." I nodded and started thinking. Third POV 10 minutes later. Kaede. "Okay. I'm ready to state my 5 wishes now." Chapter 3 Wish. Key POV. For my first wish, I paused and said, "I want my soul to be duplicated and sent back into the world where I died. Can you change the outcome by having me survive that crash?" God glanced at me, raised his eyebrows and said, "Do you mind explaining a bit more?" I looked at him with a serious expression. I know what it feels like to lose loved ones, and I don't want the people I cherish to feel that pain. So by changing fate, I want it so that instead of me dying, the truck would miss me instead. God interrupted me and asked, "Then why do you want your soul to be cloned? You can wish to go back to your original world." I don't think I want to return knowing that I cheated death," I muttered while blushing, "but I also don't want to hurt the feelings of my family." I then looked at him with a pleading expression. "I see," God responded. I saw that God was thinking about granting my wish. After a few moments of excruciating silence, he chuckled and said, "Very well." He snapped his fingers, and then I felt something detach from me, and I saw a small ball of light moving out of my body and sinking to the floor. "So what's your—" Before he could finish his sentence, I leapt out of my chair and jumped over the desk, tackling him to the floor. I hugged him and cried, "Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you." However, I immediately realized the person I tacked onto the floor was God himself and quickly prostrated in front of him. I felt so embarrassed that the color of my face was like a ripe tomato. Seeing this, God just laughed and gestured for me to sit back in my seat. When I seated, he was still giggling. I don't think I can look at him anymore without blushing. God finally calmed down and continued. As I was saying, what will your second wish be? After making sure that I wouldn't feel embarrassed anymore, I said, can I be reincarnated into the world of My Hero Academia? Of course, do you have a specific timeline in which you wish to be reincarnated? He asked. Can it be 14 years before the canon? I answered. This way, I should be able to meet the people in Class 1A. I thought in my head. God replied, sure thing. You can also choose what your quirk will be, but that will use up one of your wishes. I nodded and began to think about what the best quirk would be. Can I choose more than one quirk? I asked out of curiosity. You can, but you will use up another wish, God answered. Okay, I understand. I want to be reincarnated into the world of My Hero Academia, with the power of Sharingan and Churka. I cheerfully said while making a Chunbyu pose, covering my right eye with my right hand and making the letter V with my other hand. Okay, I will also give you a bonus. Your Sharingan will grow when you become stronger instead of the usual way. Now what will be your last wish? God said, trying very hard not to laugh at my behavior. For my last wish, I wish to keep my memories after I reincarnated. I said, your wishes shall be granted, Kaede Aoki. I hope you will have a wonderful and fulfilling life, God replied, and with a wave of a hand, I started to feel like I was going to disappear. I looked at my hands, and I saw that my body was becoming more and more transparent. Before I completely faded away, I asked out of curiosity, by the way, what happened to the white cat I saved? White cat? The white cat I moved out of the way of the truck. I'm sorry to say, God said while scratching the side of his head. It wasn't a cat. You tried to save a white plastic bag with the logo of a cat printed on it. Excuse me, what? That was all I could manage to say before I completely vanished. God POV. I have reincarnated billions of people. This is the first time someone has acted like this in front of me. They usually would act respectfully, but I can always sense displeasure or fear when they're being respectful, and they also wouldn't care about how their death affected others. Well, this change of pace wasn't so bad. I chuckled when I recalled what happened. This is also the first time I have seen someone have more than 2 or 3 wishes. To get more than 2 wishes, that person has to do many good things in their life. But what shocked me more wasn't that the girl got 5 wishes, but that she even used one of her wishes to support the people she loved. Heh, let's see what you can achieve in your new life, I quietly said to myself before teleporting out of the white room. Chapter 4 Reincarnation. Third POV. In one of the rooms inside a hospital, a woman is giving birth and was accompanied by her husband with some nurses and doctors. Just a bit more, Mrs. Uchiha, the doctor said. Beside the woman was her husband supporting her. Come on honey, you got this. She screamed as she was feeling an enormous amount of pain. Finally, the doctor shouted in joy. It's a girl. Kipov, it's a girl. Huh, where am I? Everything's so loud and bright, I said in my head. I looked at myself and realized I became an infant again. I was really reincarnated. So that means I must also be in the world of My Hero Academia as well? Then I suddenly felt the sensation being picked up. I looked towards the bed and there I saw a beautiful woman lying there. She has pale white skin, silky black hair, and a pair of beautiful black eyes that matched the color of her hair. Beside her was a tall, handsome man. He had short brown hair and the same color eyes as the woman next to him. He also has visible creases right below his eyes. /N. If you can't tell, I try to describe their appearance to look like Mikoto and Fugaku. Their names will be the same as well. Their personality will be different from the original though, smiley face. While I was admiring the 2 people who I assume were my parents in front of me, I felt pain in my rear end. I turned my head around and saw the nurse slapping my butt. The baby isn't crying, the nurse said, her voice full of concern. Is there something wrong with our daughter? The man asked worriedly. Crap, aren't babies supposed to cry when they are born? I thought, realizing that fact I quickly start wailing like a banshee. Hearing me crying, everyone blew a sigh of relief. The nurse handed me to the woman who I now assume was my mother. Now my mother was smiling happily while holding me. Mikoto, what should we name her? The man who I assume was my father asked Mom. Fugaku, I think we should name her Kaede, Kidachiha. Mikito replied with a lovely smile. That's a wonderful name, just like yours, Mikito, Fugaku said with a kind expression. Mikoto blushed. Kaede, so I still kept the same name as my last life. I quite like the name Kaede in my previous life. Must be God's intervention. I will thank him when I see him again. Hopefully not anytime soon though, haha. I internally said. While I was being held by my beautiful mother, I heard the sound of running outside the room. The door of the delivery room was swung open with force, and there was a young man standing in the doorway. The man was fairly tall with black eyes, jet black hair that was tied in a ponytail, and he looked like a mix between my mom and dad. In short, he was very handsome. It took me a bit to recognize him, but when I do, my mouth hangs open in shock. Is that Itachi? Why is he here? While I was still talking to myself in my head, Itachi said, Mother, are you alright? Mikito and Fugaku were confused about how Itachi got here so fast. Fugaku asked, Itachi, how did you get here so fast? Aren't you doing hero work? I heard that the baby was about to be born, so I finished as fast as possible and got here quickly as I can, Itachi answered. His eyes drifted onto my tiny figure, and he noticeably flinched and sharply intake his breath. Mom smiled and gestured for him to come over. Itachi, come here and meet your little sister. Itachi's eyes opened wide. He slowly walked toward us in a daze. When Itachi arrived, he stared at me for a while before finally asking, What's her name? Her name is Kaede, Dad replied. There was a pause before his lips twitched and moved into a wide grin. That's a wonderful name, he said softly. Do you want to hold her? Mom asked with a gentle tone. Hearing this, Itachi slowly nodded and held out his hands. I felt myself being lifted and transported into his arms. Looking closer at his face, I realized that he was indeed really handsome. Woohoo! Itachi is my Onian. I thought as I did a small celebration in my head. Itachi POV. Today I was chasing a thief who stole money from a store. During the chase, my phone buzzed, and looking at it I saw that the caller was my father saying that my mother was in labor. I was stunned as concerned and worried for my mother engulfed my body. However, beyond the overwhelming anxiety, somewhere within me, there was the excitement of meeting my new youngest sibling. Suddenly, I felt an intense anger washing over me as my eyes zoned in on the criminal. Right now my time was being wasted on this petty thief, and I need to reach the hospital as fast as possible. I will make you regret ever committing a crime, I muttered with rage. I moved my chakra into my legs and with a boom, I launched myself towards the criminal. My speed have outmatched a bullet, and before the criminal could react, I drove my knee into his back. I smashed his weak body into the ground and I felt some of his bones were broken upon impact. Once he was on the floor, I heard a loud shout, Don't worry, I am here. The person with the defeating voice landed beside me. Once the dust settled, I recognized him as All Might. Seeing that the thief have already been dealt with, he grinned. A young Itachi, I see you have already taken care of the criminal. I quietly nodded and handed him the thief. Once it's no longer my business, I left and hurriedly rushes towards the hospital. Once there, I quickly opened the room where my parents were staying. I swung the door open. Mother, are you all right? I asked with uneasiness. Thankfully, the baby have been delivered safely and my parents beckoned me to come over. I spotted the infant in mother's arm and I felt my heart knocked against my ribs. Itachi, come here and meet your little sister. Mother's voice snapped me out of my daze. I hesitantly walked over. My steps became heavy as if I was on the last stretch on a marathon. Little sister, little sister, little sister, little sister, little sister, little sister, little sister. These two words constantly resounded in my mind. When I arrived, I saw the beautiful face of my new family member. What's her name? I asked with bated breath. Dad then told me her name is Kaede. That's a wonderful name, I replied sincerely. Do you want to hold her? Mother then asked with a gentle tone. I gulped and slowly held out my hands and mother gently placed Kaede in my arms. We stared at each other before Kaede giggled and reached out her tiny arms. I reached out with my finger and she grabbed it and cooed. In my mind, all I could think of was, how can a baby be this cute? I cradled Kaede, being careful not to drop her. As I was playing with Kaede, another thought reaches me. What if a boy takes her away? Anger once again sprouts within me, and I tried my best to not contort into a snarl. No, I can't let that happen. I will protect my sister with everything I had. And if there are any boys that chases her, I swear with my life that I will make sure that he regrets ever being male. That day, I made a promise that I was sure to not break throughout my entire life. Chapter 5. Family and New Life Begins. A few days later, Kaede POV after staying in the hospital for a while, Mom and I were finally allowed to leave. On our way home, Mom and Itachi were taking turns playing with me in the car. I glanced out the window and saw people wearing cool hero costumes or cool mutation quirks walking down the streets. Not going to lie, I may still have a teeny bit of doubt about whether I really reincarnated into the MHA world, but once seeing this, all the uncertainty vanished. After 10 minutes, our car finally stopped at a driveway. Mom had fallen asleep. Seems like the exhaustion from childbirth still remained. Itachi, you will carry Kaede to the baby room and I will bring Mikoto to bed, Dad said to Itachi as he bring Mom into a princess carry. I think my eyes may be playing tricks with me. I swear my brother's eyes glowed when he heard this. When Itachi brought me out of the car, I started observing the front of my new home. It was a massive traditional Japanese-style house. In my mind, all I can think of was how cool it is, as I always wanted to feel what's like to live in one. After entering our new home, Itachi started to walk toward what I assumed to be my new room. Looking at his face, I can see that he was staring at me with a big smile. I giggled at his expression, and hearing me laugh, his smile became wider than before. After a few twists and turns, we finally stopped at a door. Itachi opened it, and inside it got a table with baby supplies and a decently sized crib. As soon as he put me in the crib, my eyelids started to get heavy. Even if I have a mentality of a 16 years old, my body was still of an infant, so all the playing in the car took a lot out of me. Sweet dreams, Kaede, Itachi muttered, and I soon fell asleep. Itachi POV seeing my cute little sister's sleeping face, I further strengthened my resolve of protecting her. I heard the door gently creak open and I saw father slowly entered. He gestured for me to quietly follow him out of the room. We reached the dining room and he told me to sit at the table. He sat on the opposite side of me and the atmosphere became solemn. After a minute of silence, he said, "We have to protect our Kaede from all the boys that want to take her from us." Hearing this, my face also became serious and nodded. He then pulls a credit card out of his back pocket and put it on the table. "Itachi, I have an important mission for you." He paused before continuing to say, "We didn't have any baby toys because we didn't know whether the baby is going to be a boy or a girl. You will help go and buy us things for Kaede. The budget is the least of our concerns." I nodded. "You won't be disappointed," I replied, my tone full of vigor. Hearing my response, he smiled before walking away to tend to mother, leaving the credit card on the table. I grabbed the card and left the house. I was still wearing my hero costume from leaving early to help bring Kaede and mother back home. I would have normally changed, but this was more important. I summoned multiple shadow clones to look for the closest and best store that sells baby toys. After locating the closest store, my pursuit begins. POV, it was just another normal day in the shop. I was working behind the counter and watching countless mothers picking clothes and toys for their newly born children. I glanced outside and saw a strange scene. Dozens of crows began to gather and flying in a circle close to the ground. As more and more birds began to gather, I spotted a figure of a young standing in the middle of the flock. He was dressed strangely with his dark black hair tied to a ponytail and wearing a black cloak with red clouds printed on it. /N I forgot to say that Itachi's hero costume was the same as when he was in Akatsuki, sorry about that. He looked somewhat familiar. I looked at his eyes and saw that the irises was bright red with his pupils the shape of a 3-star shuriken. That's when I realized who it was, Red Crow, the third strongest hero in Japan, close behind Endeavor and All Might. He started slowly walking towards the store and I was sweating thinking if I did something wrong. As soon as he entered, everyone in the shop became silent. Red Crow then approached me and stared at me with his bright red eyes. I glanced behind him and saw that everyone was looking at him with admiration and awe. I admit, even though I have to say that he looked fairly handsome, but currently I have to try my best to not piss myself when looking at his terrifying red eyes. I'm confused about how many women find his eyes attractive. I tried to stay very calm and said in my most casual voice, "Hi. How may I help you, sir? Where can I find toys and clothes specifically for baby girls?" He asked with a calm tone. His expression haven't changed once. I have worked part-time in this store for a year now, and out of instinct, I pointed at the far right corner of the store. He nodded and walked in that direction. I blew out a sigh of relief and wondered why the third strongest hero will need to buy things for babies. Kaede POV. I slowly woke up full of energy. I tried to sit up, but since I'm still very young, I don't have the strength to do so. I looked around the room and was very surprised. The room was filled with dolls and plush toys. Every space was covered with toys, and there was not even any room to walk. What happened while I was asleep? I screamed in my head. Chapter 6 First Word. Kaede POV 1 year time skip. Take this, Mr. Teddy, your heinous crimes end today. Hiya. My tiny fist weakly struck the bear's stomach and made a squeaky noise. Right now I'm playing with a teddy bear in my room while Mom was supervising me. I'm already 1 year old now and I have learned how to crawl. As soon as I can move around, I immediately started exploring the house. The interior of the house was pretty large. The house have 2 floors. On the first floor there was a big living room that connects to the dining room, 2 bathrooms, 2 guest rooms, and finally my room. My mom and dad's room, dad's office, and my Oni-chan's room were all on the second floor. There was also a spare room that I assume was for me when I grow older. The only reason I'm staying on the first floor was that they were afraid that I'm going to hurt myself on the stairs, which sounds like something that could happen easily. So good job, Mom and Dad. Anyway, back onto me playing with my cute teddy bear. Who knew playing with a plushie could be this fun? I giggled and hugged the bear, and Mom was looking at me with an affectionate gaze. After playing for a while, I slowly became more and more tired. Mom saw this and gently picked me up before placing me back in my crib. Arg, this body is so annoying. I thought to myself. I barely got any energy. I'm easily exhausted just by doing simple actions. However, it's not so bad since I can be showered with love by my family. Because of all this love and affection, I try to be the best baby I possibly can. Thanks to my 16-years-old mentality, I barely cried and caused a disturbance, so it's very easy to take care of me. That's what I hope. For the next few days, I continue to do my basic routine, play with toys, eat and sleep. In the beginning, I can only make some weird sounds trying to get my family's attention. It was frustrating at first, to not be able to express what you're feeling. But my family gets all excited when I try to say something to them, so I guess it's fine. As long as my family's happy, then I'm happy. Just a few months ago, my parents tried to teach me to say mama or dada as my first words. I think they're in a competition on whose name I will call out to for my first word. Since they were pretty determined, so I tried pretty hard, but I still can only make some unintelligible baby noises. Until one day. Do you ever felt like you can't do something previously, but you felt that today was the day you can finally do it? Well, it's something like that. It's hard to explain. Regardless, I was playing with a new plush toy today, while still under the watchful gaze of my mother. I then felt something funny with my throat. I looked back at Mom and made some noises to get her attention. I can't point yet since my fingers aren't very coordinated, so I just started touching my mouth with my tiny hands. My mom got a bit worried and asked, Kaede, is there something wrong? Mikoto POV. Today was another day of spending time with my cute daughter. My husband and I tried to get Kaede to say our names as her first word. At first, it was just simple and fun, but soon it became a full-blown competition. Luckily, I got the advantage as I get to stay at home to take care of Kaede while Fugaku needed to go to work. However, my husband just won't give up and continue to try to get Kaede to call him Dad. Well, his sheer resolve and the ability to never give up were one of the reasons I fell in love with him. I blushed while thinking of the fun we had in the past. Suddenly, I heard Kaede making some noise. I looked at her and she was trying to get my attention. We were surprised at first by how good Kaede's behavior was. We were happy that it was much simple to take care of her, but sometimes it felt weird how calm and intelligent she was. However, I don't really care. I know that Fugaku and Itachi don't really mind either. It just made us love Kaede more than ever, and we will always shower her with affection when we got the chance. When Kaede noticed my attention was on her, she started touching her mouth and throat with her hands. I got closer to her to see if there was something wrong, and I felt a slight anxiety in my heart. I asked worriedly, Kaede, is there something wrong? She then slowly made some noise. Ooh. Duh. My eyes widened. It sounded like words. I resisted the urge to jump up and down while screaming hallelujah. Fugaku, Itachi! I yelled. my voice full of happiness and excitement. Kaede is going to say her first words. Soon I heard running, then my husband and son burst into the room. Kaede going to say her first words? Fugako asked, his tone also sounding excited. I quickly nodded with a big smile on my face as we gathered around my daughter. Kaede continued to try to say something. I encouraged her. Kaede, you got this. We can tell Kaede was trying very hard. We all held our breath, afraid to disturb her. We all looked at her with excitement. Itoishi. Kaede chirped. She then stared at us before giggling with glee. We're shocked. We're pretty sure that a baby shouldn't say something as complicated as her first word. However, what's even more shocking was that instead of calling for me or my husband, she called for Itachi instead. I slumped my shoulders and sighed in defeat. Fugako and I stared at each other before smiling wryly. Even if it wasn't us, we're still very proud nonetheless. Itachi-po, Itoishi, Kaede said. What did she just say? She said Itachi, right? She really called my name right? I thought. I looked at my parents' defeated expression, which confirmed my suspicion. Let's go. My cute sister just said my name as her first word. This is the best day of my life. My mind was in full chaos and my heart thumped. I was so happy and couldn't remove the smug grin on my face. I glimpsed at mother and father. Both of them were staring at me enviously. I smirked and gently picked Kaede up and whispered into her ear. You're the best little sister I could have asked for. Kaede laughed with a bright smile that can match an angel's. She giggled while calling my name. Itachi, Itachi, Itachi. Chapter 7 Research Time. Time skip 3 years later. Kipovi. It's been 3 years now since that incident. I can still remember it clearly. The reason I said my Onaikan's name was because I don't want to choose which parents were my favorite simply because I love them both equally. However, since that day when I was spending time with my Onii-chan, he always wanted me to call his name. That day also caused his big brother Aura to go full blast for 2 years straight. In the past, Itachi Onii-chan usually tries to hide it because he thought it was a bit embarrassing. I mean, I don't really hate it because he always looks so happy when he's spending time with me. Now I'm 4 years old. I can say some simple sentences, but words with long syllables was still too difficult for me. I also got my own room now. At the moment, I only got a pink bed, a decently sized desk, and a wardrobe. I didn't ask for anything else since I don't require much. I told my parents that I like to gain things with my own hard work. And hearing this, my parents were very proud of me. But occasionally they still ask whether I wanted something. Currently, I was sitting in front of the TV watching a show about heroes. If you're close enough, you can sense the enthusiasm and excitement oozing out of my body. When I first started watching TV, I saw something that shocked me to my core. I saw a news recording of my Onii-chan fighting criminals and rescuing people. In the past, I asked what is his job and he always changes the topic every time I asked. I can sense that he doesn't feel comfortable talking about it, so I usually just accept that I will figure it out myself in the future. However, sometimes my childish curiosity can't resist. When I saw him on the large screen, I quickly ran upstairs and dragged him out of the room. I pointed at the living room TV and yelled in excitement. Look, Onii-chan, look. You're on TV. I looked at him and my eyes were sparkling like stars. Seeing this, Onii-chan's lips twitched for a second. He then smiled stiffly and said, Yeah, I am. Wow, Onii-chan, you're a hero. That's so cool. I want to be a hero like you when I grow up as well. Hearing my declaration, Itachi Onii-chan frowned. He then said, Are you sure? When I saw Onii-chan's frown, I asked in a sad tone, So I can't. When he noticed my shift in mood, he quickly said, No, of course you can be a hero. Really? I asked. He nodded. Yay, I love you, I said while hugging him. Itachi's POV become saddened knowing that my cute little Kaede wanted to be a hero. Kaede was always a smart child, so when I heard her declaration, I doubt that she was just messing around. Being a hero wasn't all bright and full of stars. Many people's expectation and dreams were shattered because of it, and I don't wish Kaede to suffer through that as well. I plan to ask her again once her quirk awakened before finally deciding how I should deal with this. POV after that, Itachi Onii-chan didn't want to talk about hero things with me, and I sensed that he felt uncomfortable talking about it. I got scared that day he won't love me as much anymore, but Itachi Onii-chan reassured me that he will love me no matter what. Later on, I finally gained permission on using the family computer in the living room. Out of curiosity, I first searched about my parents' families. My dad was a famous and respectful detective that has solved many cases in Japan, and my mom was a well-known surgeon that has saved many lives, even heroes. I also searched about their quirk. I found out that on my father's side, their family has the power of Sharingan. It helps them incept things in more detail, remember information just by looking at it once, and hypnotism. Their quirk was very powerful for police work, as it can find clues that normal people can't find, and they can easily retrieve information from criminals. Sugoi! I screamed in my head. On my mother's side, their family has the ability of chakra. It was said that my mother's family came from a long line of heroes. According to the information found online, their family was pretty famous too. From reading the information online, each person in the family has different chakra elements. After reading more information, I realized that it's just like Naruto, there are 5 basic chakra elements and that each member of my family can manipulate one of the 5 elements: earth, fire, wind, water, and lightning. Mom has a water element chakra, and she has very advanced chakra control. In the past, she was also a hero, but after marrying Dad, she retired and started pursuing a medical career. Her abilities were very essential in the medical world as medical ninjutsu needed very good chakra control. For my brother, turns out he's the 3rd strongest hero in Japan. His hero name was Red Crow, which I thought was very cool. People also think of him as a child prodigy since he was very smart, and he became a hero at the age of 17. He's only 22 right now. He unlocked 2 quirks. He got the Sharingan and chakra with the fire element. Knowing this, my admiration for him grows even more. Wow, my mom, dad, and Oniai-chan are also cool. I promise I will be as awesome as them as well. I muttered with determination. I can't wait for the day that my quirk awakens. Chapter 8: My Power Unleashed. Third POV. 6 weeks have passed since Kaede investigated her family's history. Right now, they were all together watching All Might saving civilians on television. Kaede was sitting close to the screen intently staring at the TV. Behind her, the rest of the family was looking at her with concern. On the screen, All Might carried a group of people on his shoulder as he stood on top of a broken bus while laughing. It's fine now. Why? Because I am here. Hearing this, Kaede became very excited and the smile on her face widened. /N. That scene was a reference to when young Deku was watching All Might before they found out that he was quirkless. The more you know XD. Seeing Kaede's reaction, the other 3 family members became more anxious. They were worried that Kaede may pursue a hero career, and were terrified that their beloved Kaede will get hurt. Suddenly Kaede begins to rub her eyes with a pained expression. Kaede, is there something wrong? Itachi asked. She grunted and turned her head towards them while still rubbing her eyes. They thought that Kaede watched too much TV and was tired. However, they began to panic as blood started to drip out of her eyes. Kaede POV. All Might was so cool. I want to be a hero just like him. I thought while watching the scene in front of me. Suddenly I felt discomfort in both my eyes and I began to rub them out of instinct. Kaede, is there something wrong? Itachi asked. I groaned and turned my head toward Itachi Oniai-chan's direction while still rubbing my eyes in pain. I felt tears falling out of my eye. Did I watch too much TV? I thought. Mom then rushed towards me and started to examine my eye closely. Kaede, are you okay? Your eyes are bleeding. Mom's shrieked. Bleeding? Wait, could it be? I asked myself internally. Third POV. Mikoto was panicking while looking at her husband with teary eyes. Fugaku quickly realized what was happening and yelled out in a commanding tone. Everyone to the hospital now. Kaede may be awakening the Sharingan. There was no hesitation. Mikoto immediately picked up Kaede and rushed to the car with Fugaku and Itachi following close behind her. Fugaku was very worried about her daughter, however, in his heart, he was feeling slightly happy that her daughter got his family's quirks. Kaede POV. During the car ride, I kept my eyes closed as it was painful to open them. Kaede, are you okay? Mom asked while using medical ninjutsu to ease the pain in my eyes. It hurts, I muttered. We finally arrived at the hospital and were guided to a patient room. My parents must have called in advance since usually, you will need to wait for a bit before meeting the doctor. Don't worry, sweetie. Dr. Suzuki is a great friend of mine. She will take good care of you, Mom reassured me. I nodded. The pain had considerably lessened, but I'm still afraid of opening my eyes. Third POV, the Uchiha family was guided into a room. Inside there was a bed with an office chair and desk next to the bed. There was some medical equipment placed around the room. Sitting on the chair was a woman with brown hair and green eyes. She saw the family walk in and said, "Hello Mikoto, please bring Kaede to the bed." Mikoto nodded and gently lifted Kaede and brought her on the bed in a sitting position. Suzuki started examining Kaede's eyes. "Does it still hurt, Kaede?" she asked softly. Kaede nodded and said, "Only a little bit." Hearing this, Suzuki nodded and told Mikoto to start using her quirk on Kaede's eyes to ease the pain. When Mikoto started applying her quirk on Kaede's face, she relaxed. "Kaede, can you slowly open your eyes?" Dr. Suzuki asked. I will try." Kaede replied and hesitantly opened her eyelid. When they looked at her eyes and saw that the irises became blood red and a black comma rotated around the pupil, "Congratulations, Kaede, you have awakened your quirk," Dr. Suzuki announced. Kaede POV. I slowly opened my eyes and everything seemed to be super clear and slow. My mind felt dizzy as random information was loaded into my brain all at once. "Congratulations, Kaede, you have awakened your quirk," a woman with brown hair and green eyes said, who I assumed to be Dr. Suzuki. She handed me a mirror and I looked at my new appearance. My Sharingan shined fiercely and I smiled. I looked awesome. I instinctively knew how to utilize my power and deactivated my Sharingan as my eyes returned to normal. Finally, I unlocked my quirk. I thought as I smiled in excitement. I tried to get off the bed, but Dr. Suzuki held me down. "Stop, I still needed to do some tests to check if there's anything wrong." I nodded and stopped resisting. "Can we stay here and wait for Kaede?" Dad asked the doctor. "Yes, you can," she answered him. Seeing me okay, my family sighed in relief and patiently waited for my tests to end. A few tests later. "Okay, on to our last test. I will check if there are any additional quirks/mutations within your body. My quirk is called Analysis. It can show me the information of an object or living being that I came in contact with," Dr. Suzuki said to me. A/N. Basically just your typical isekai appraisal as a quirk, LOL. I nodded and she grasped my shoulder. For a moment I felt like I was being watched, like my body was put under a microscope. My body subconsciously shivered uncomfortably at that feeling. I looked at Dr. Suzuki and I saw her open her eyes in shock. "No way, Kaede also got a second quirk of chakra just like Itachi," she exclaimed. Everyone in my family widened their eyes in shock. Mom quickly recovered from the shock and pulled me into a hug. "Both my children have hybrid quirks. Do I only give birth to geniuses?" We laughed. Dr. Suzuki sighed and said, "How are you so lucky, Mikoto? Anyways, all the tests have been finished. Your child is very healthy and can go home now." We all thanked Dr. Suzuki and left the hospital. During the car ride, I started playing around with my Sharingan by activating and deactivating it. I also tried to sense my chakra. It took me a long time for me to sense it, and I can only feel a small amount. I think I needed more training to sense more of my chakra. "You got 2 quirks now, just like your Oniai-chan." Sitting next to me, Itachi Oniai-chan said with a smile and patted my head. "Yes, and just like you, I will be the greatest hero in Japan," I declared. Hearing my declaration, Itachi Oniai-chan, Mom and Dad frowned. They all have worried expressions on their face. "Is this what you really wanted?" Mom nervously asked. "Yes. I will help people in need and defeat evil, just like All Might," I said with fire in my eyes. Seeing my determination, they just sighed. "I see. Kaede, if that's what you wished for, then we won't stop you from achieving your dream," Father said. "However, your mother and brother will personally train you and both of them will determine whether you're suited for this line of work." Mom and Itachi Oniai-chan nodded at my father's condition. "I won't disappoint you," I said while saluting. Seeing my cute small form saluting to them, the 3 of them laughed. I pouted seeing their reaction. But not soon after, I started laughing with them as well. From that day on, I know that my path to being the greatest hero begins. Chapter 9, New Friend. Kipyovu. My mom and Oniai-chan told me that they will start training me once I get older. However, who said I can't train by myself, am I right? So I asked them if I can go play in the public playground, and they hesitated but agreed in the end. My family was very protective of me, so they usually don't want me to play outside. But now, knowing that I wish to be a hero when I'm older, They thought that I will need to be a bit more independent in the future, so they reluctantly agreed. At the park. Wow, there are so many kids. I thought to myself while looking at the children at the playground. There are some of them with mutation quirks. There's one that looks like a cat, one that has a pair of wings flying around the jungle gym, and even one with hard exoskeleton armor around his body. It's so cool. I watch them with admiration. I want to befriend them all. However, I quickly shook my head and slapped both my cheeks. Focus, Kaede. The reason you're here was to train your chakra control. I didn't want to train at home because I knew my family won't like that, so I made an excuse to come here. Kaede, be careful, okay? I will be sitting right here. Mom said to me and sat down on a bench not so far from the jungle gym. Don't worry, Mom, I will be fine, I said to her with a reassuring smile. She smiled back and nodded, but I can still see the slight hint of concern in her eyes. After comforting my mother, I started exploring the playground to find a secluded spot to train. I continued to search before finally finding a spot under the jungle gym. I was preparing to meditate and sense my own chakra. However, I suddenly heard someone whimpering near me. I followed the sound and found a girl alone, and she was crying with her head on her knees. Hi, are you okay? I asked and approached her. She looked up and slowly shook her head. The girl had brown hair, large brown eyes, and a perpetual blush on her face. When I examined her face closely, she felt familiar somehow. But I stopped thinking and focused on the weeping girl before me. She was silent for a while before pointing at her knee. I looked at her knee and saw that there was a small wound and it was bleeding. She must have tripped and hurt herself, I analyzed. I smiled and sat next to her. My name is Kaede Uchiha, what's yours? The girl froze and hugged her knees. Ochako Uraraka. She responded in a quiet tone. My eyes slightly widened and became speechless. Ochako Uraraka. One of the more well-known characters from MHA. Uraraka stared at me nervously with anticipation. I noticed she felt uncomfortable under the silence and hurriedly grinned to hide my surprise. It's really nice to meet you, Uraraka-chan. I said, what kind of quirk do you have? Zero gravity. She shyly responded. That sounds so cool, what does it do? I asked in excitement. She picked up a rock next to us and I saw a pink light coming out of her fingers as she touched the rock. Immediately, the rock started floating in the air and I watched in admiration. That's awesome, I exclaimed. It's not really. She flusteredly replied. However, Uraraka's expression betrayed her as she smiled from my praise. Hey Uraraka-chan, do you want to be friends? Sure, she answered, and we talked for the rest of the afternoon. I completely forgot the reason I'm here. Uraraka was pretty surprised when I told her that my Oniai-chan was the third strongest hero in Japan. Red Crow. We also talked about our dreams. Uraraka also wanted to be a hero, and we're happy that we shared the same goal. We talked for so long that the sun started to set. I heard Mom calling for me from a distance. Kaede, we're leaving. She yelled. Okay. I shouted so she could hear me. Come on, let's go, I said and grabbed Uraraka's hand. We left the playground and walked to my mother. She smiled when she saw me with Uraraka. Wanna introduce me to your new friend? Mom said while raising one of her eyebrows. Hi, I'm Ochako Uraraka. Uraraka said anxiously with her head lowered. Mom saw Uraraka's wound and her eyes widened. Era, did you hurt yourself? Don't worry, I will heal your knee. She knelt down and touched Uraraka's knee with her hand, and there was a faint green light as her injury healed completely. Thank you very much. She beamed. Mom chuckled and said, no problem. Come on, Kaede, let's go home. Okay. See ya, Uraraka-chan, I said while waving goodbye. She also waved back while smiling happily. On our way home, I finally remembered the reason I went to the public playground. Oh shoot, I completely forgot. Oh well, I guess it wasn't so bad. I get to make a new friend, I thought to myself, and returned home with a wide grin on my face. Uraraka POV. It hurts, I muttered as tears threatened to fall out of my eyes. I have tripped while running around and I don't have anyone to help me. In the end, I crawled to a hidden area under the jungle gym where no one could hear me cry. Hi, are you okay? I suddenly heard a voice ask. I glanced up and saw a girl staring at me with a worried look. She had long black hair tied in a ponytail with two big black eyes that reminded me of dark pearls, a small nose and a cute mouth. /N. I tried to describe the appearance of the book's cover image. She has black eyes instead of gold like the image though. What happened? She asked. Tears immediately leaked out my eyes when I recalled what happened. I calmed myself down and pointed at my knee. Her concern for me grew and she sat next to me. My name is Kaede Uchiha, what's yours? She asked with a kind voice. Ochako Uraraka. I shyly responded. She then asked me what's my quirk. I showed it to Uchiha and she stared at me with awe. People never really complimented my quirk before and I felt fuzzy inside. We talked for the rest of the afternoon and I enjoyed the time I spent with her. She was always smiling and laughing, which reminded me of a little son. I was very surprised that her big brother was the third strongest hero in Japan, Red Crow, and I was delighted to know that we shared a similar goal. Her mom was also really nice and she perfectly healed my injury. I was glad to meet someone like Uchiha. I never had a friend before because I was too shy to talk to people. I really hope I could meet her again. Chapter 10, Home Alone and Secret Training. After I befriended Uraraka, I have been spending a lot of time with her and I never got the opportunity to train my chakra. Although it has been really fun. Right now I'm at the front door saying goodbye to my parents. Now that I'm old enough to stay at home by myself, Mom and Dad finally got the opportunity to spend some time with each other, which I fully support. They're going to a well-known restaurant specially made for couples. Remember, Kaede, don't open the door to strangers, okay? Mom repeated, I won't, Mom. Now go spend some time with Dad, I replied with a smile. Mom laughed at my remark, kissed my forehead and hugged me before leaving the house. After they left, I smiled. Finally, I'm alone now. That means it's training time, I declared. Currently, I'm home alone. Itachi Oniai-chan was doing some hero work, however. He did leave a crow summoned to watch over me. I turned my head and glimpsed at the giant black crow standing at the dining table. Crap, what do I do? My family did tell me to not train since they're worried that I'm too young to start training. But if there are no witnesses, I muttered with a mischievous tone. The crow tilted its head and the bird got a bad feeling. I slowly walked towards it and gently picked it up. Crow-san, I wanted to try my quirks, and is it okay if you don't tell Itachi Oniai-chan? I asked in a soft tone. The crow quickly shook its head. Please? I pleaded in a begging tone and I gave him the best puppy eyes I can currently do. I don't know how I can tell, but I know that Crow-san's currently sweating pretty hard right now. Coo. Nobody can resist my puppy eyes. Step 1 completed, now on to my second step, bribery. Crow-san, if you don't tell Itachi Oniai-chan, I can give you food. I continued to beg with my puppy eyes. Crow-san looked away from my eyes before slowly nodding, agreeing to my offer. Yay, Crow-san, thank you very much. I yelled in happiness and hugged Crow-san and started rubbing my face against the bird's soft feathers. Crow-san Itachi-sama tasked me to watch over his little sister today. He told me to beware for her cute charms. I thought he was exaggerating since that's all he talked about most of the time. Oh, how wrong I was. I'm sorry, Itachi-sama, I have failed you. I apologized in my head and ate the leftover food from the fridge that little miss gave me as I watched her run upstairs to her room full of enthusiasm. Kivo, mission successful. I celebrated as I run into my room and sat on my bed and get into a lotus position. Okay, no, where to start? I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. I tried to feel the chakra within me. It took me around 15 minutes before I finally am able to sense something. I tried to get used to that feeling of chakra as I continued to stop and repeat the process. It took me around 3 hours to get the hang of it. Now I can sense my chakra in around 10 minutes now. Then I attempted to maneuver my chakra so that it will move around my body. At first it was only a little bit, but after another hour of continuous concentration, I can slowly move the chakra around my body. As a test, I started transferring my chakra to my feet. And I felt that my legs got stronger. I got excited and I get off my bed to test it out. I tensed my muscles and jumped and I was in shock as I leaped higher than before. I started giggling at the mere thought of the amount of things I could achieve. However, because of it, I lose concentration and my chakra left my legs. I became very happy as my training is working. Can I start walking on walls now? I became really excited imagining myself walking on the ceiling like a ninja. I moved my chakra to my feet and legs again. Once done, I carefully planted of my feet on the wall. Okay, here goes. I firmly placed my second foot on the wall, and I was suspended in mid-air with my feet secured perpendicularly to the ground. I'm walking on the wall. I exclaimed, my voice full of joy. Unfortunately, I overestimated my skill as I tried to take a step and I immediately lose focus and fell. Thud! I screamed. Crow-san instantly flew into my room to investigate the commotion. The bird saw me teary-eyed on the floor. Crow-san caught at me and gave me a "I told you so" look. I pouted and muttered sadly, "Crow-san, you bully." Crow-san approached me, spread one of its wings and patted me on the back. I continued to sulk as I picked Crow-san up and brought it to my bed. I lay down and tightly embraced the bird. So soft, I murmured and hugged Crow-san tight. Before I knew it, I slowly drifted off to sleep. Itachi POV. I finally got back home from work at my hero's agency. It was already pretty late and my parents haven't come back home yet. "Kaede, I'm home," I yelled. No response. I mentally asked my summoned crow where Kaede, and it responded that she's asleep in her bed. I walked upstairs and quietly opened the door to Kaede's room. I saw her peacefully sleeping on her bed while snuggling against my crow. The bird had a miserable expression on its face. It looked at me and mentally begged for help. I smirked and gently closed the door. "If I save you, I will disturb my sister's sleep. Your sacrifice won't be in vain," I said to the crow in my mind. I heard a car pull over in our driveway and soon enough Mom and Dad walked in. I greeted them. "How's Kaede?" They both asked as it was the first time they left Kaede home alone. "She's fine, she's sleeping right now," I responded. They both nodded. They were relieved that Kaede's fine by herself. We all went back upstairs. Then once again gently opened Kaede's door and watched her sleeping figure. After that we all went to bed. I am quite happy that Kaede can take care of herself and I fell asleep while my mind was at ease that my little sister was okay. Chapter 11. First day of school starts now and another friend. Kaede POV 2 years time skip. I have finally turned 6 years old this year. I have grown taller, and thanks to my secret training my chakra control got way better than before. Now I can instantly sense my chakra and move them around my body at a decent pace. My chakra reserves also increased by a small amount because of it. I also can walk on walls now, which was pretty cool. Don't worry, I didn't forget to train my Sharingan. If I remember the lore from Naruto, it takes training to get used to the Sharingan and use them efficiently in combat. I remembered that when I first tried to move around with Sharingan I stumbled a lot and got very dizzy as everything looked very slow and weird. But, thanks to my efforts I can now walk perfectly fine with my Sharingan, but it is still pretty hard to run at my full speed with it activated. But in time, Kaede, you will master it, I said to myself to pump myself up. Anyway, since I reached 6th this year, that means it's my first day of elementary school. I was very excited and I became more excited once I and Uraraka found out we will go to the same school, and we were in the same class. Throughout the years we have become very close, we even started calling each other by our first names. /n for Kaede POV. I will now refer to Uraraka as Ochako. However, for other people's POV she will be called Uraraka. Sorry if this confuses you. While I was reminiscing I heard Mom calling from downstairs. "Kaede, let's go or we will be late." "Coming." I grabbed my backpack and hurriedly ran down the stairs. My mom was already waiting for me at the entrance. She saw the excited smile on my face and asked, "Excited for your first day?" And I nodded. Mom held my hand and we started walking to school. This school was not far from my house, so we can get there in a relaxing speed. The name of my school was called Akurusora Elementary School. It was a pretty well-known school and luckily, I easily passed the entrance exam. When we finally got there I was surprised by how many people there are. The school was pretty big, it have 6 floors and it was said that every time you move up a grade you will move up a floor as well. Since I'm in grade 1 my class will be on the first floor. While I was admiring the school, I heard someone call my name. I turned around and saw Ochako sprinting toward me. "Kaede," she said while smiling. "Hello Ochako-chan." I returned the greeting. "I'm so excited, I wonder what school will be like," she muttered with a curious tone. "It's gonna be fun," I replied. "Okay kids, you guys should be going now. Kaede, stay safe and I will pick you up in the afternoon," Mom said to me. "Okay Mom, I will," I replied, and she gave me a firm hug before leaving the school grounds. "Come on, let's not be late," I urged, and we both started running to our classroom. After running for a bit, we finally reach our destination. We opened the door and the classroom's empty, except there was another girl sleeping at her desk. Where is everyone?" I asked in confusion. I think we're early. Ochako said. She's just as confused as I am. Hearing our voices, the girl woke up and glanced at us. She has pink hair and pink skin. Her eyes were full of black with yellow pupils, and she also has 2 small horns protruding out of her head. She looked oddly familiar. When the girl saw us, she gave us a wide grin on her face and said with a cheerful tone, "Hiya. I'm Mina Ashido, wanna be friends?" Hearing her name, I got very excited since she was also one of my favorite characters in MHA because of her outgoing personality. I happily approached her. "Wow, you look so cool. My name is Kidachiha. I will gladly be friends with you." Hearing my compliment, Ashido stood up. She has a smug smile on her face and slapped her chest with pride. Of course, it took a lot of work to be this awesome. Ashido and I hit it off very quickly. I think the main reason was that we have a pretty similar personalities. I also introduced Ochako to Ashido. Ochako was pretty shy at first, but she also got along with Ashido well. While we were talking, the class finally started. Ochako, Ashido, and were sitting right next to each other. Because I have a mentality of a 16-year-old, the class was too easy for me and I almost fell asleep. During lunch, we all sat together at one of the tables inside the cafeteria discussing our quirks. All 3 of us wanted to be a hero and go to UA when we got older. By the way, what's your quirk, Ashido? I asked out of curiosity. Ochako also wanted to know, so she paid attention to our conversatoin. I can create slimy liquids that can be very acidic and melt through things. She happily replied. How about your quirk? Uraraka-chan and Uchiha-chan? My quirk allows me to give the items I touch 0 gravity. Ochako responded as she touched her fork and it floated into the air. Wow, that's so cool. How about yours, Uchiha-chan? Ashido excitedly asked. I didn't say anything and activated my Sharingan as I looked at her. She was shocked, but she quickly recovered and exclaimed, "Your quirk looked awesome. It looked very similar to the Red Crow." Of course it does. He is my Oniai-chan after all. I boasted and pointed my head in the air. Hearing this, Ashido dropped the utensil she was holding. Her eyes widened with shock and her mouth agaped. Ashido stood up and slammed both her hands on her table and yelled, "Nani Iathi." This gathered the attention of all the other students in the cafeteria. She quickly sits back down, her face blushing with embarrassment. Ochako and I giggled. The more we laughed, her face becomes even redder and redder. After that incident and we're walking back to our classroom, Ashido recovered from the embarrassment and regained her vigor. "Is the Red Crow really your brother?" Her voice was full of hope and excitement. I nodded and her smile grew so wide that it almost reached her ears. "That's awesome. The Red Crow is such a sick hero. He always got this calm and calculated expression in public no matter the situation. People speculated that he never smiled once in his life. Is that true? You can practically see the stars in her eyes." "Well," I said while scratching the side of my head with one of my fingers as I recalled how he acted around me throughout my 6 years of living. "He does smile at home," I said. "Really, Uchiha-chan, do you mind doing me a favor?" Ashido asked. Sure, what is it, Ashido-chan?" I replied. "Can you try and get a picture of your brother smiling?" She said. "Oh, why would I do that?" I asked in confusion. You see, I like to collect things, especially things about heroes such as posters or figurines. Ashido explained with pride. "Do you know how rare a picture of the emotionless Red Crow smiling will be? The ladies will kill for something like that," she said. "Me. Ochako." After a while, I finally responded in an apologetic tone. "I don't think I can do that, sorry. My Onaikin must be hiding his emotion for a reason, right?" Hearing this, Ashido nodded in understanding. "Sorry, it's just my hero obsession kicking in," she muttered while rubbing the back of her head. We returned to our classroom and continued talking until class starts again. After a few more hours of learning, the school finally ended. We walked out of the school entrance together and searched for our parents. "Heat over here." Mom calls out to me while waving her hand. Ochako's mom was also standing next to her. They have become good friends when Ochako and I started hanging out more and more. "Okay, Ashido, I will see you tomorrow," I said while waving goodbye to her. Ochako also said her goodbyes to Ashido before following me. As we were running toward our parents, I heard Ashido calling out to us. "Wait," she yelled. Ochako and I stopped and turned our heads. "Please call me Mina," she shouted. We both smiled. Then please call me Kaede. Please call me Ochako. We both said to her. Then we will see you tomorrow, Mina-chan. I yelled back at her while once again waving goodbye. Hearing this, she smiled brightly. She then heard her mother calling her and she ran in the opposite direction. We then reached Mom and I waved goodbye to Ochako and Mrs. Uraraka. On our way home, Mom then said with an affectionate tone, "So Kaede, I saw you made another friend?" "Yeah, her name is Mina-chan and she's really nice," I said. "By the way, Kaede, I will finally start your training this weekend. Unfortunately, it will still be a few more years before Itachi's training as his mainly consists of combat. I'm not really disappointed that Itachi Oni-chan will train me in combat when I'm older since I'm still 6 years old. However, I became really excited that my training with Mom will start soon." "Really, my training starts this weekend?" I asked while looking up at her. "Yes, really," she said while smiling. "I love you, Mom." When I heard what Mom said, I started to get super excited and started jumping up and down. She laughed at my childish behavior. She picked me up and carried me all the way home while I firmly hugged her like a koala and buried my face into her neck. "My real training starts now, I can't wait," I said in my head. Chapter 12 Sleepover. It's Wednesday, and in 3 days I will receive my first official training. Mom said that she will be the one to train me first and Itachi Oni-chan will train me the next weekend. Presently, I was chatting with my two friends, Ochako and Mina. While we were talking, Mina made a proposition. "Hey Ki-chan, Ochako-chan, wanna have a sleepover at my place this Friday?" "Sleepover? That sounds fun, however, I don't have a sleeping bag though," I muttered dejectedly. Ochako also nodded while also looking a bit sad. "I got some spare futons that you can borrow. Don't worry, everything was all planned out. All we need was your mom and dad's agreement," Mina announced while doing a guts pose. Hearing that everything was already prepared, Ochako and I were very excited and we further talked about the details until we needed to go home. By the end of the day, all three of us can't wait. Ochako and I agreed to immediately ask our parents. During my walk home with Mom, I looked up at her and asked, "Mom, is it okay for me to have a sleepover at Mina-chan's place?" She thought about it before finally agreeing, but she said I have to ask for my dad's approval as well. I will, thanks, Mom," I replied with a cheerful tone. Sensing my enthusiasm, she giggled and patted my head. As soon as we got home, I immediately ran up the stairs and busted into my dad's office. My dad was working with some documents on his desk. Seeing me walk in, he smiled and gestured for me to sit on his lap. I happily complied. When I climbed onto his lap, he asked, "So how's school today?" "Today was really great. My friend invited me to a sleepover. So Dad, can I go?" I asked with a hopeful expression. He frowned before slowly saying, "That friend you're speaking of, was it a boy or a girl?" "No, Mina-chan is a girl. Why?" I questioned with bewilderment. /N. I wanted the MC to be pretty dense about things like romance. If you got other ideas, then feel free to comment. Dad sighed with relief. "Don't worry about it. If it's a girl, then it's okay, you may go," he said with a smile. Hearing this, I got even more confused. However, since Dad said to not worry about it, then I won't worry about it. "Okay, thanks, Dad," I said and hugged him. "However, I will be busy this Friday, so I can't bring you there. Your mother also needed to go to work at the hospital as well," he explained. I thought for a while and said, "I will ask Oni-chan if he could take me there." He nodded and put me back on the floor. I quickly ran out of the room while thanking him. I knocked on Itachi Oni-chan's door and asked if I could come in. Itachi POV. I was resting in my room while reading a manga on my bed. There was a knock on my door, and my cute little sister's voice sounded from the other side. "Itachi Oni-chan, can I come in?" she asked. I felt happy that she wanted to talk to me, so I quickly opened the door and let for her to come in. "Itachi Oni-chan, is it okay for you to take me to my friend's house for a sleepover on Friday?" she shyly asked while touching her 2 fingers together. I frowned and asked out of instinct, "Is your friend a boy?" She became confused. "No, my friend's a girl." Dad asked the same thing. "Is there something wrong?" she asked while tilting her head to the side. I lightly coughed into my hand due to the awkwardness and quickly shook my head. "Sure, I can take you there," I said with a smile. "Yay, I love you, Oni-chan," she chirped and hugged me. I felt delighted when Kaede hugged me. So cute. I muttered. What did you say? My little sister asked while hugging me. No, nothing, I said while enjoying the embrace. Kipu, my Oni-chan asked whether my friend was a boy as well. Is it some sort of secret code that I'm not aware of? I pondered, however. I soon forgot about it since Itachi Oni-chan agreed to take me there. I hugged him and I heard him say something, but I ignored it since he told me it was nothing. We then spent the rest of the afternoon together reading mangas the next day. I told Mina that I can come to her house for a sleepover. Ochako's parents agreed as well. Mina gave us her address and the time we should arrive. We were all pretty ecstatic and we continued to feel the same for the next day. Time skip Friday. Okay, Mina-chan, see you at 6. I yelled and waved goodbye to both my friends before going home. After I go home, Dad has to go work at the police department and Mom has to go work at the hospital. Currently I was in my room packing some clothes for the sleepover into my backpack. I also packed my toothbrush and one of my plushies. Yes, I still slept with a plush toy. I can't easily fall asleep without hugging something small and soft. Finally, it's time to go. Itachi Oni-chan and I left the house. However, there's quite some distance between Mina-chan's house and mine. Dad had already taken the car. How are we supposed to get there, Oni-chan? I asked with a worried expression. Itachi-chan just smiled and picked me up in a princess carry. What are you doing, Oni-cya? Before I could finish my sentence, he started running at an extreme speed. He then jumped high in the air and started jumping from roof to roof. I kept my eyes closed and screamed the entire way. 10 minutes of roof jumping later, Itachi Oni-chan finally put me down. My legs were wobbling and I felt dizzy. I pouted at him and he rubbed the back of his head with his hand. Sorry about that, he said with an apologetic look. I will forgive you just because. You're my Oni-chan, I said while continuing to pout at him. Seeing my reaction, he smiled and patted my head. I enjoyed the sensation but quickly snapped out of it. Come on, let's find Min-chan's house, I urged before running off. Currently, we're on the 5th floor of a large apartment building. I was running around trying to find Mina's home. After a few more turns, we finally found the correct address and I excitedly knocked on the door. Mina POV, my friends were coming over today. I was so excited that I can't sit still in one spot. As soon as I got home from school, I immediately started preparing. I put the 2 spare futons in our home in my room. After that, I got everything else ready. I already prepared a plan for the perfect sleepover and I can't wait for them to arrive. I kept my eyes on the clock until finally, I heard a knock on the door. Mina-chan, I think one of your friends is here, my mom yelled. Coming. I yelled and ran to the door. Welcome. I opened the door and yelled. Hello, Mina-chan, Ki-chan said. I welcomed her in and I noticed there was a man behind her. When I looked closer at his face, I opened my eyes wide with surprise. Red Crow, I yelled out. OMG, the 3rd strongest hero in Japan was right here at my front door. I screamed in my head as I looked at him in a daze. Kipu, Mina seemed to be in a daze, so I gently poked her. May we come in? I asked. She quickly realized what she was doing. She blushed and let us come in. Mina quickly sprinted into her room and came back out with a pen and notepad. She walked up to my Oni-chan and stretched out her hand holding the pen and notepad. May I please have your signature? She said with a loud voice. Itachi Oni-chan nodded and wrote down his name. Mina's eyes were sparkling as she stared at the small paper. She hugged the notepad close to her chest and bowed. Thank you, she said excitedly. Itachi Oni-chan nodded again and he walked back to the front door preparing to leave. Mina was also standing next to me, also saying farewell to my Oni-chan. I will pick you up in the morning, he said with an emotionless face. Huh, so this is what they mean when they said that my Oni-chan showed an expressionless face in public. I see an opportunity for some mischief, I thought to myself with a smirk. I then whispered my plan to Mina. Her eyes lit up and she nodded passionately. Okay. Goodbye, Itachi Oni-chan, I love you, I said with the cutest voice I could muster. His body twitched for a bit. I can see him struggling not to smile. But he quickly calmed himself and nodded at me. Just a bit more push, I said in my mind. Are you not gonna say goodbye to your little sister? I respond with a fake teary-eyed expression. I can see that he's panicking right now as his body trembles uncontrollably. His hand instinctively reached out to me to pull me in for a hug. But he stopped himself with all his effort. Keep of it's Wednesday, and in 3 days I will receive my first official training. Mom said that she will be the one to train me first and Itachi-chan will train me the next weekend. Presently I was chatting with my 2 friends, Ochako and Mina. While we were talking, Mina made a proposition. Hey Ki-chan, Ochako-chan wanna have a sleepover at my place this Friday. Sleepover? That sounds fun, however I don't have a sleeping bag though. Muttered dejectedly. Ochako also nodded while also looking a bit sad. I got some spare futons that you can borrow. Don't worry, everything was all planned out. All we need was your mom and dad's agreement. Mina announced while doing a guts pose. Hearing that everything was already prepared, Ochako and I were very excited and we further talked about the details until we needed to go home. By the end of the day, all 3 of us can't wait. Ochako and I agreed to immediately ask our parents. During my walk home with Mom, I looked up at her and asked, Mom, is it okay for me to have a sleepover at Mina-chan's place? She thought about it before finally agreeing, but she said I have to ask for my dad's approval as well. Then, I will, thanks Mom. I replied with a cheerful tone. Sensing my enthusiasm, she giggled and patted my head. As soon as we got home, I immediately ran up the stairs and busted into my dad's office. My dad was working with some documents on his desk. Seeing me walk in, he smiled and gestured for me to sit on his lap. I happily complied. When I climbed onto his lap, he asked, So how's school today? Today was really great. My friend invited me to a sleepover. So Dad, can I go? I asked with a hopeful expression. He frowned before slowly saying, That friend you're speaking of, was it a boy or a girl? No, Mina-chan is a girl. Why? Questioned, with bewilderment. /N. I wanted the MC to be pretty dense about things like romance. If you got other ideas, then feel free to comment. Dad sighed with relief. Don't worry about it. If it's a girl, then it's okay, you may go, he said with a smile. Hearing this, I got even more confused. However, since Dad said to not worry about it, then I won't worry about it. Okay, thanks Dad, I said and hugged him. However, I will be busy this Friday, so I can't bring you there. Your mother also needed to go to work at the hospital as well, he explained. I thought for a while and said, I will ask Oni-chan if he could take me there. He nodded and put me back on the floor. I quickly ran out of the room while thanking him. I knocked on Itachi Oni-chan's door and asked if I could come in. Itachi POV. I was resting in my room while reading a manga on my bed. There was a knock on my door, and my cute little sister's voice sounded from the other side. Itachi Oni-chan, can I come in? She asked. I felt happy that she wanted to talk to me, so I quickly opened the door and let for her to come in. Itachi Oni-chan, is it okay for you to take me to my friend's house for a sleepover on Friday? She shyly asked while touching her 2 fingers together. I frowned and asked out of instinct, Is your friend a boy? She became confused. No, my friend's a girl. Dad asked the same thing. Is there something wrong? She asked while tilting her head to the side. I lightly coughed into my hand due to the awkwardness and quickly shook my head. Sure, I can take you there, I said with a smile. Yay, I love you, Oni-chan. She chirped and hugged me. I felt delighted when Keat hugged me. So cute, I muttered. What did you say? My little sister asked while hugging me. No, nothing, I said while enjoying the embrace. Keep of my Oni-chan asked whether my friend was a boy as well. Is it some sort of secret code that I'm not aware of? I pondered, however. I soon forgot about it since Itachi Oni-chan agreed to take me there. I hugged him and I heard him say something, but I ignored it since he told me it was nothing. We then spent the rest of the afternoon together reading mangas. The next day, I told Mina that I can come to her house for a sleepover. Ochako's parents agreed as well. Mina gave us her address and the time we should arrive. We were all pretty ecstatic and we continued to feel the same for the next day. Time skip Friday. Okay, Mina-chan, see you at 6. I yelled and waved goodbye to both my friends before going home. After I go home, Dad has to go work at the police department and Mom has to go work at the hospital. Currently, I was in my room packing some clothes for the sleepover into my backpack. I also packed my toothbrush and one of my plushies. Yes, I still slept with a plush toy. I can't easily fall asleep without hugging something small and soft. Finally, it's time to go. Itachi Oni-chan and I left the house. However, there's quite some distance between Mina-chan's house and mine. Dad had already taken the car. How are we supposed to get there, Oni-chan? I asked with a worried expression. Itachi-chan just smiled and picked me up in a princess carry. What are you doing, Oni-ckya? Before I could finish my sentence, he started running at an extreme speed. He then jumped high in the air and started jumping from roof to roof. I kept my eyes closed and screamed the entire way. 10 minutes of roof jumping later, Itachi Oni-chan finally put me down. My legs were wobbling and I felt dizzy. I pouted at him and he rubbed the back of his head with his hand. Sorry about that, he said with an apologetic look. I will forgive you just because you're my Oni-chan, I said while continuing to pout at him. Seeing my reaction, he smiled and patted my head. I enjoyed the sensation but quickly snapped out of it. Come on, let's find Min-chan's house, I urged before running off. Currently, we're on the 5th floor of a large apartment building. I was running around trying to find Mina's home. After a few more turns, we finally found the correct address and I excitedly knocked on the door. Mina POV, my friends were coming over today. I was so excited that I can't sit still in one spot. As soon as I got home from school, I immediately started preparing. I put the 2 spare futons in our home in my room. After that, I got everything else ready. I already prepared a plan for the perfect sleepover and I can't wait for them to arrive. I kept my eyes on the clock until finally, I heard a knock on the door. Mina-chan, I think one of your friends is here. My mom yelled, coming. I yelled and ran to the door. Welcome. I opened the door and yelled. Hello, Mina-chan, Ki-chan said. I welcomed her in and I noticed there was a man behind her. When I looked closer at his face, I opened my eyes wide with surprise. Red Crow, I yelled out. OMG, the 3rd strongest hero in Japan was right here at my front door. I screamed in my head as I looked at him in a daze. Kipi of Mina seemed to be in a daze, so I gently poked her. May we come in? I asked. She quickly realized what she was doing. She blushed and let us come in. Mina quickly sprinted into her room and came back out with a pen and notepad. She walked up to my Oni-chan and stretched out her hand holding the pen and notepad. May I please have your signature? She said with a loud voice. Itachi Oni-chan nodded and wrote down his name. Mina's eyes were sparkling as she stared at the small paper. She hugged the notepad close to her chest and bowed. Thank you, she said excitedly. Itachi Oni-chan nodded again and he walked back to the front door preparing to leave. Mina was also standing next to me, also saying farewell to my Oni-chan. I will pick you up in the morning, he said with an emotionless face. So this is what they mean when they said that my Oni-chan showed an expressionless face in public. I see an opportunity for some mischief, I thought to myself with a smirk. I then whispered my plan to Mina. Her eyes lit up and she nodded passionately. Okay. Goodbye, Itachi Oni-chan, I love you, I said with the cutest voice I could muster. His body twitched for a bit. I can see him struggling not to smile. But he quickly calmed himself and nodded at me. Just a bit more push, I said in my mind. Are you not gonna say goodbye to your little sister? I respond with a fake teary-eyed expression. I can see that he panicking right now as his body trembles uncontrollably. His hand instinctively reached out to me to pull me in for a hug, but he stopped himself with all his effort. Chapter 13, Chakra Training. Hipovi. Mom, where are we going? I asked her while I sat in the shotgun seat. We're going to an isolated area since I will do some demonstration on the power of chakra, Mom announced pridefully. Currently, both of us were in the car driving away from the city. I looked out the window and gazed out at the farmlands and trees. I then glanced at Mom, who was driving with a carefree expression. She rests her shoulder out the window and her black hair swayed under the wind. Is there something on my face? Mom tilted her head. Nope, I smiled and made a popping noise with the P. I just thought that Mom looked really beautiful. Mom giggled and pinched my cheek. Why is my daughter so cute? Anyway, we will be there soon, so just be a little more patient. After 10 more minutes, we drove onto a dirt path and parked next to a patch of land. I got out of the car and observed my surroundings. The land was the size of a soccer field, and there was no sign of people everywhere I look. Starting from now, this is the place where I will train you, she said as she gestured for me to follow her. We reached the center of the field and she told me to sit down. Mom then started explaining the basic summary of chakra. I already knew these things but still listened intently to her explanation. Chakra is the life energy of all living creatures. However, while the average people have a minuscule amount, our family has a very large amount which allows us to connect it with our spiritual and physical energy. We can then weaponize this energy and use it in combat. The stronger you become, the more chakra you can access in your body, Mom explained. /N. Remember, Fugaku can't utilize chakra as it's only on Mikoto's side. Also, please forgive me if I got the chakra wrong. Also, because of our high amount of chakra, each member of our family can mold their chakra and turn it into one of the 5 elements: earth, fire, wind, water, and lightning. However, we can only use one of the 5, not all of them. Mom continued to explain while holding up her fingers. /N. I know that's not true in the Naruto world, but it will be too OP if every family member on Mikoto's side becomes avatars. I raised my hand. Mom, what chakra element do you and Itachioni-chan use? I asked. I use the water element and your brother uses the fire element. She replied. Wow, can you show me? My face flushed with excitement. She nodded, made some hand signs and said Mizuha no Jutsu. With a swipe of her hands, a blade made of water shot out of her wrist. Sugoi! I shouted as I watched the water blade cleanly cleave the tree in half. These types of moves were called jutsus. Kaede, what did you see before I summoned the water blade? Mom asked me. You did some weird things with your hand? I answered. Correct. For us to access our chakra, our family developed hand seals to help us summon and mold the chakra in our body to perform a jutsu. I nodded my head in understanding. By the way, Mom, what's my element? We don't know yet, but we can determine it with this. Mom answered and pulled a piece of small paper out of her pocket. A paper can determine my chakra element? I tilt my head in confusion. This is a special paper that our family had created to determine one's chakra nature. It works by injecting a little bit of your chakra, and what happens to the paper will determine your element. If the paper burns to ashes, then your element is fire. If the paper becomes damp, then your element is water. If the paper crumbles and turns into dirt, then your element is earth. If the paper is split in half, then your element is wind. If the paper is wrinkled, then your element is lightning. However, since you can't even sense your chakra yet, so we'll start from there first. Now, Kaede, relax and try to sense your chakra. Since it will be your first try, it should take around 2 to 3 hours, so be patient. Found it. I replied immediately. Oh shoot, why did I say that? I started sweating. Did you practice when you told us not to? Mom said slowly. I averted my gaze and whistled innocently. Well, my best attempt at whistling. Mom sighed while pinching the bridge of her nose. What level are you currently on? She questioned with a tired tone. I can instantly sense my chakra, maneuver the chakra around my body at a decent pace and slowly walk on walls. Hearing my response, she sighed again before smiling and finally bursting into laughter. Haha, of course you would have secretly trained, you're my daughter after all. You're just like me and Itachi. Mom and Itachioni-chan did it too? I asked. Of course, I was a training maniac. My mother have to threaten me to stop before I hurt myself. I have to do the same thing to Itachi too. It runs in the family, I guess. Mom said. But to think that you're already at this level, how much did you train? She asked. I start training every time you, Dad, and Itachioni-chan left the house, and I kept on training till you guys get back, I said. Didn't Itachi summon his crow to watch over you? Does that mean your brother knows as well? I bribed Crow-san. I muttered and guiltily lowered my head. You bribed Crow-san? She repeated questioningly. Please don't get mad at him, it's not his fault. I yelled and hugged Mom's leg. I'm sorry for not listening to you. I mumbled teary-eyed. She patted my head. It's okay, we already suspected you will be doing something like that. Mom explained with a kind smile. I nodded but continued to embracing her leg. After a bit, I finally calmed down and resumed my training. I asked Mom if I can check what's my chakra element since I already have basic chakra control. She agreed and handed me the chakra paper. I held the paper and closed my eyes. I carefully divert a little bit of my chakra onto the paper. For a while nothing happened. Suddenly the paper started to wrinkle. Congratulations, Kaede. You have the lightning element. Mom declared. Lightning? That means I will be able to use cool jutsu like Chidori, right? I thought to myself. I suddenly got excited about what was ahead of me in the future, and imagined myself striking my enemies down with lightning. However, I ban you from learning any lightning jutsu until you start training with Itachi, she said in a tone that indicated that her decision was final. I reluctantly nodded and asked, then what can I practice right now if I'm not allowed to learn lightning jutsu? Simple, if you direct your chakra at a part of your body, that part of the body will be strengthened temporarily. If you master your chakra control, you can build up chakra in your limbs and release it at a specific point during impact can do severe damage to the target. Mom said, I will make a demonstration, stay back kid. She warned. I hurriedly moved away from her and Mom raised her foot and before stomping on the ground, boomed the floor before Mom exploded creating large cracks and fissure in a 10-meter radius. My eyes are shining so bright to a level that you shouldn't look directly at them. Seeing my reaction, Mom laughed and gestured for me to sit back down. She then told me to get into a meditation position. Mom told me that I already have a high amount of chakra because of my hard training. So for now, she will teach me how to maneuver my chakra more efficiently and more effectively throughout my body. I tried to move my chakra according to her explanation, and I found out that I can move it more quickly and conserve more chakra doing so. My original method was really rough and crude compared to this method. I continued to practice this method. I'm starting to get a little hang of it, but Mom stopped me because the sun was already setting and I went home satisfied that I learned a better technique to control chakra than my original one. That's how my first day of training ended. Chapter 14 Combat Training. 4 years time skip Kipoi. I reached 10 years old, and my mom has been teaching me for 4 years now. My body has grown taller and I looked more mature than before. Fortunately, I still kept my cuteness. Well, that's what my family said. My body also started developing and becoming more athletic, however. It's still not to the point where I can safely dodge an attack. 2 years ago, Mom said that she have taught me all she knows about chakra and it's up to my own now to get stronger. Currently, I have now mastered chakra control and other powerful jutsu that don't require a specific chakra element to learn, such as the infamous shadow clone jutsu. I also learned a little bit of medical jutsu. It's not to the point of Mom's level, but I can heal small wounds and bruises. Since I mastered chakra control, I can now easily destroy a stone wall with my fists by building up the chakra and releasing it at the exact moment when my fist came in contact with the wall. That's the only damaging move Mom allowed me to learn, so I at least have a good way to protect myself, and it also strengthens my mastery of chakra control. So my only combat skill was just some powerful punches and kicks with no techniques behind them. Another unfortunate news was that I barely practiced my Sharingan. I can still walk with it normally, however. Other than that, I completely forgot about it until Itachi-chan reminded me. Itachi-chan told me that my training with him will start soon and that he will fix these issues. His words make me realize how lucky I am to have someone like him as my Oni-chan, and I promise myself to give in my best effort. Currently, we're inside a giant gymnasium located at the edge of the city. Once inside, I was shocked at what I was seeing. Inside the gym was a giant obstacle course. I was in awe. I quickly snapped out of it and asked, Itachi-chan, where are we? This gymnasium was specially built to train heroes in their agility and reflexes. He replied, Oh, I see. I answered in understanding. Let's start here. First go through that course without using your Sharingan, Itachi-chan said while pointing at a small course at the corner of the gym. The first part of the course includes some fence posts, which I assume that I have to jump on each of them to advance. The next part contains a singular long log, and I guess that it will train my balance. Finally, the last bit of the course is a tall wall with a rope attached at the top of the wall. There was a soft mat placed on both sides at the bottom of the wall to prevent injury. This is the easiest course in this gym. I will time you on how fast you will take to go through it. After I'm satisfied with your results, you will then repeat the course with your Sharingan activated. Itachi-chan explained while holding a stopwatch. Okay, I exclaimed while giving my Oni-chan a thumbs up. He smiled and gestured for me to get ready. 3, 2, 1, go. Immediately I started running towards the first part of the course. I boosted my feet with my chakra and jumped onto the first fence post. I then proceed to jump from post to post. I stumbled a bit at the start and almost tripped, but I recovered and got through the first part. The second part was very easy since I can just stick to the log by moving the chakra to my feet. The last part was also surprisingly simple since I can once again stick to the wall and run up using the rope. When I finally reached the end, I stared at my Oni-chan with expectation. 2 minutes and 16 seconds. That's pretty good for your first try, he said while smiling and nodding in satisfaction. Try again, but this time try to beat your first record, Itachi Oni-chan commented before gesturing for me to get ready. After a few hours, I managed to bring down my time to 42 seconds. I felt happy that I have improved, and Itachi Oni-chan also felt cheerful seeing my improvements. Stop, Kaede. Let's make this a bit more challenging. Itachi Oni-chan then walked to a panel attached to the wall and pressed a button. Suddenly the ground started shaking and making a loud mechanical sound. I looked back at the course and was surprised. My mouth was open so wide that you probably can fit an entire apple in there. The fence posts started moving up and down. There was a metal window on the walls and it suddenly opened. Large turrets the size of a cannon started emerging from the hatch and faced the long horizontal log. Lastly, I looked at the wall. At first it seemed normal, but suddenly random wooden beams started moving in and out of the wall at random intervals. Saying that I'm afraid of what I was seeing was a very big understatement. I was petrified. I looked at Itachi Oni-chan with a worried expression seeing my scared look. Itachi Oni-chan patted my head and said with a reassuring smile, "Please forgive me, Kaede, but this is the best way for you to become strong." I calmed myself and nodded with determination. I got ready and built up the chakra in my lower body. I sprinted and attempted to jump on the first fence post. Immediately the movement of the fence post caught me off guard and I fell onto the floor. I sat up, healed my wounds and tried again. After an hour of continuously hurting myself, I eventually got the hang of it and passed the first section of the obstacle course. I jumped onto the log and paid my full attention to the turrets mounted on the wall. Sure enough, the turrets started firing rubber balls the size of a small watermelon. The rubber ball was moving at an insane speed. I managed to dodge a few before one hit me right in the stomach and knocked me off my feet. I coughed and almost vomited due to the pain. I saw Itachi Oni-chan was very worried about me and was about to stop the training. "Don't stop the training, Oni-chan, I can do this," I pleaded. He hesitated before finally nodding and the training resumed. I can now pass the first section of the course without failing, but the rubber balls continued to hit me. After a couple of hours of the continuous onslaught, I suffered multiple bruises on my stomach, leg, shoulder, and even one on my face. However, I finally managed to predict the trajectory of the projectiles that the turret shot at me. I leap onto the wall, my feet once again stuck on its surface, and I started running. Unfortunately, things won't be that easy and wooden beams appear out of the vertical surface, trying to knock me down. I accidentally stepped on one of the beams and it pushed me away, causing me to lose balance, and I fell onto the mat. I lay there and stared at the ceiling with a tired expression. However, I won't give up. I slowly stood back up and aimed to finish the course. Thanks to my training from the last 2 sections of the course, it didn't take me long to successfully scale the wall and finish the course. After that, I spent another hour practicing by going through the entire course as fast as possible. I was very tired, but my determination kept me going. Itachi Oni-chan pressed the button again, and the course returned to normal. "Good job, Kaede, you did well. Now I wanted you to do the same thing but with your Sharingan activated," he said. And I nodded and activated my one-tomo Sharingan. I proceeded to go through the course. However, it was way harder than I imagined. The newly enhanced perception messed with my timing and I tripped the first few times. Itachi Oni-chan told me to not see the Sharingan as an ability, but instead as a part of me, and to accept and adapt to the changes in vision other than to fight and try to control it. I listened to his explanation and tried to do what he said. I found out that it was indeed easier and I had a better time when attempting the obstacle course. I continued to practice my Sharingan and Itachi Oni-chan, and also reactivated the tricky contraptions. Thanks to my Sharingan, it wasn't as difficult as the first time I tried it. It allows me to see the movement of each fence post. I can when it's going to move up, or when it is going to move down, so I can adjust my landing accordingly. I can now also dodge the balls coming toward me since they're coming at a low motion, but it's still hard for my body to react in time, and it was scary seeing something shooting straight towards you, knowing that you couldn't do anything about it, but endure the pain that's to come. Lastly, the wall running was also very straightforward, as I can predict when and where the beam will materialize out of nowhere. I continued to train like this for the rest of the afternoon. Okay, stop now, Kaede, you have done very well on your first day. I'm proud of you, Itachi said while smiling affectionately at me. I didn't respond and smiled back. Hearing that I'm done for the day, the adrenaline left my body and I suddenly became very tired. Before I fully passed out, I saw Itachi catch me and carried me in his arms. I think I did pretty well for my first day, I thought before drifting into a deep slumber. Itachi POV seeing my sister's bruised face while sleeping in my arms, I felt pain in my heart. It hurts every time I see her falling onto the ground and injuring herself. It hurts so much that I wanted to stop the training multiple times. But seeing Kaede's determined face, I know that it was wrong for me to stop it. However, within those pain, there was also a deep sense of pride and respect toward Kaede. I'm proud that my sister can achieve so much within the first day. It makes me look forward to how much she can grow in the future. I hope that you will one day surpass me and be the greatest hero, I quietly muttered and rubbed her head. Chapter 15 Final Test. Time skip. Another 4 years later. Kaede's 8 years have passed ever since I started training under Mom and Itachi. I have grown substantially stronger. During the years of training under my Oni-chan, I have learned most of the lightning jutsu that my family knows of. However, they haven't invented Chidori, Kirin, or even the thunder armor. I'm disappointed that I can't learn these powerful moves, but it filled me with resolve to invent these strong moves. Speaking of inventing jutsu, I replicated the Rasengan. Shocking, I know, right? It took me 2 years to completely master it. My memory on Naruto was a little vague, so the whole process was a hit and miss. Mom and Itachi were very surprised that I create my jutsu, and they were more shocked because of how powerful it is. They did scold me though for creating something so dangerous. I agreed to teach them this jutsu. Mom mastered it in 1 year while Itachi mastered it in 7 months. Not jealous or anything. Other than jutsu, thanks to the obstacle course training, my body has become way fitter and stronger than before. I also learned multiple combat techniques and martial arts so I can easily defend myself in hand-to-hand combat. Other than hand-to-hand combat, I also have weapon training. I learned how to perfectly throw a kunai and shuriken, and I started using a tanto that I strapped behind my waist as my main choice of weapon. I also invited Mina-chan and Ochako-chan to my combat lessons. They happily agreed since they wanted to be powerful heroes. Nowadays, they have decent skills in martial arts, and they have become stronger than their anime counterparts. My Sharingan also evolved from 1 tomo to 2 tomo, which was exciting. Don't worry, I didn't forget to train my chakra from time to time. Another sad news was that I missed out on the sludge villain attack in the first episode. But it's exciting to see the 2 main characters of MHA on the news. Currently, Itachi and I were standing on the playing field back when Mom started teaching me. What are we doing here, Oni-chan? I asked, confused since he didn't wish to tell me during the ride. I have taught you all I know. Today will be the final test to see whether you're fit to be a hero or not. Itachi smiled wryly. Throughout the years, he also has grown taller and more handsome than before. More and more women always try to flirt with him every time we're in public. I wondered how he haven't snapped yet due to the constant attention. He also has become considerably stronger, and the public speculated that in a few more years, he will soon be on the same level as All Might. I gulped and nodded, paying attention to what he was saying. He made some hand signs and said, Kagabunshin no Jutsu. A puff of smoke generated from behind him and another Itachi appeared. Today Itachi was wearing his hero costume, so I suspect that his clone will have the same equipment he has as well. You will be fighting my shadow clone. The clone will be using 30% of my strength. You will have to defeat it to pass my test. He explained as the clone entered a fighting stance. I also got into my stance and awaited his signal. Begin, he announced. As soon as the match started, the clone dashed toward me at a ridiculous speed. I activated my Sharingan and barely dodged the kick that was aiming for my stomach. Fast, I thought as I quickly recovered and grabbed his leg. Building up chakra in my hands and arms, I threw him 50 meters away. I yelled, Raitanya no Jutsu, and 2 arrows made of lightning appeared beside me and I sent them toward the clone. The clone retaliated and a giant fireball came out of his mouth. The 2 jutsu collide with each other and created a gigantic smoke screen. The clone tried to relocate me through the dense fog, but to no avail. Looking for me? I yelled and burst through the cloud of smoke. I held out my left hand and a spinning ball of chakra materializes in my hand. Rasengan. I shouted and aimed my attack at the clone's face. A blade made out of flame emerged in the clone's hand and tries to meet my Rasengan head-on. Seeing this, I decided to use my Rasengan as a feint. I dispelled the Churkasphere and did a spin in midair. I unsheathed my Tanto and swung it towards the side of the clone's face. Asterisk clang. Asterisk my blade met with the clone's kunai. My body was still in the air and thanks to my reflexes, I raised my lower body and landed a kick in the clone's stomach. The clone staggered backward and I quickly followed after it. I moved my chakra to my lower body and leaped high in the air. I held out my Tanto with my right hand. I used my left hand and swiped the side of the blade from the handle to the end with two of my fingers. Suddenly blue static started to coat my blade, and it looked like I'm wielding a knife made of lightning. I saw the clone in the distance and I prepared to attack with my weapon. He weaved some hand signs and multiple small fireballs shot out of his mouth toward me. I slashed the fireballs with my Tanto, dissipating them while I quickly closes the distance between us. Seeing his attack was useless, the clone again created a blade of fire and leaped towards me, planning to meet me in midair. I threw two kunai at the clone hoping to catch it off guard. However, he deflected both kunai with his fire blade, and we met each other and both of us swung our weapons in unison. Lightning meets fire. Blue meets red. Both of us landed at the opposite end of each other, and for a few seconds none of us moved. Silence filled the air and suddenly the clone collapsed before exploding into a cloud of smoke. I felt tingling in my eyes. I looked at the reflection of my blade to see that my two tomo have evolved and become a 3-tome Sharingan. I glanced back at Oniai-chan. Clap clap clap, well done Kaede, you have passed the test, Itachi. Oniai-chan said with a proud tone. However, I can also sense a hint of melancholy in his voice. I tiredly smiled at him as I shed tears of joy. 8 years of training have not gone wasted. He walked up to me and hugged me tightly. I did it, Oniai-chan, I said as my head was still deeply buried in his chest. You have grown strong, my cute little sister. I'm so proud of you, he replied. I nodded and asked, by the way, Oniai-chan, why do you always hide your emotions in public? He patted my head. Showing one's emotions in battle can be detrimental. Your opponents can use that to your advantage. Remember, Kaede, you have to always stay calm and think rationally no matter how dire the situation is. If you don't, you may act out and lose someone precious to you, he answered solemnly. We stayed like that for a few minutes before going home. When we got back, we announced to my mom and dad my achievements. They were very proud of me and decided to celebrate my accomplishments. Mom went all out during dinner. She created so many delicious dishes and we had a feast. I ate so much that I felt like my stomach was going to explode. Finally, in bed, I reflected on today's battle. It was a tough battle. It shocked me that's only 30% of Oniai-chan's strength. The clone hasn't even activated its Sharingan. I wish that one day I will fight Oniai-chan while he was using his full strength. However, that's for the future, and right now, I'm delighted knowing that I'm getting closer to fulfilling my dream of being the greatest hero. Chapter 16, Money-Making Scheme. I woke up and felt refreshed. This is the best sleep I had in years. After Itachi Oniai-chan's test, I had my final junior high exam the following day. Don't worry, I'm doing fine in school because I can remember everything on the board if I use my Sharingan to read it. Every time I use it, I can tell my classmates were very jealous, but they can't do anything because I'm very strong after all. So even if I mostly focus on my training to be a hero, I can easily pass school. Sure enough, I passed my final exam with flying marks. Luckily, Mina and Ochako also passed, thanks to some private tutoring lessons from yours truly. Both of them also wished to go to UA, and were happy that we wanted to go to the same school. I informed my family that I wished to attend UA High to study being a hero there. My parents agreed. They helped me apply for the entrance exam online, and we then checked that the UA entrance exam starts in 3 weeks. However, my family banned me from doing any more training until the UA entrance exam starts, as I need to spend some time relaxing and not think of training all the time, which I reluctantly agreed. Just like my mom and Oniai-chan, I became a training maniac. I spent my free time on training and I find joy in it. The feeling of working very hard and being rewarded for it was so satisfying. I sit up from my bed and looked around my room. It was still pretty plain with barely any decorations. I never really cared about it since I haven't paid much attention. Now all I can think of was how to make my room very pretty and cute. However, I don't have any money. I told my parents to not give me allowance because I want to get stuff through my own power and it's coming back to bite me in the rear. No matter, there are still a lot of ways to make money. I thought as I changed into my everyday clothes and have breakfast. Enough about that, I went downstairs and greeted my family. Mom was cooking breakfast in the kitchen while Dad and Oniai-chan were sitting at the dining table. I greeted them and also sat at the table waiting for our food. After breakfast, the rest of my family left the house because they got work. I went back into my room and sat at my personal desk. I began to think of a good way to make money. I got an idea, I exclaimed as I point one of my fingers in the air. I recreate the mangas from my old world. I thought with a smug smile, /n. I know most fanfics do something like this, but I just want to write one cause it seems fun lol. I took out my phone and started searching the manga names back from my old world. After a bit of research, I found that none of the mangas in my old world exists here. Well, first, I know that you must have one question. Kaede, when did you get a phone? Well, I got it 2 years ago on my birthday. I completely forgot what's like to have one as I never considered using one here. But when I got it, I can't imagine my life without one. Okay, I got carried away there, back to my money-making scheme. I got excited and imagined myself making a lot of money with these mangas. Thanks to my anime addiction in my old life, I can still largely remembers the plot of most anime I watched. I sprinted to my dad's office and borrowed some blank A4 paper, grabbed the pen on my desk, preparing to recreate the first manga. The manga I want to create first is Demon Slayer. I always liked the story, and that's one of the manga that actually ended and wasn't ongoing when I died. Now you may be wondering why I don't recreate Naruto. Well, why would I? Why not? Well, it's because I have to draw my lovely Oniai-chan murdering MOM and Dad, that's why. I get goosebumps just thinking about it, ugh. But you may also wonder why I don't just change the plot a bit. Well, that's gonna be a lot of work, you know. I rather create something first that doesn't force me to change the plot. /n. Just imagining fanfic within a fanfic LMAO. Wait, who am I talking to? I must be going crazy. Oh well. Dang, I got carried away again. Where was I? Oh yeah, I picked up my pen and started recreating the first volume of Demon Slayer. A few days later. Phew, finally done. I said and wiped the imaginary sweat off my face. I examined the first volume of Demon Slayer in front of me with a satisfied expression. I went downstairs to get something to drink before doing some finishing touches. After 1 hour of editing, I began to do some simple exercises to keep my body in tip-top shape. It's not as extreme as my training, just some simple push-ups, sit-ups, and other exercises. After I finished exercising, I went and took a refreshing shower. When I came out of the shower, I heard our front door being opened. I'm home. Itachi Oniai-chan called out. Itachipyo, I home. I yelled and entered the house. Welcome back. Kaede yelled back. I got happy hearing my sister's voice. I went upstairs to my room and changed out of my hero costume. I sat on my bed and suddenly heard a knock on my door. I opened it and see Kaede holding what seems to be a book in her hands. Is there something you need, Kaede? I asked. I wrote a manga and I wanted to see if you like it. And if you do, can you help me publish it? She responded shyly and handed me her manga. Hearing this, I'm surprised to know that my little sister wrote a manga. Then I felt excited that I get to be the first one to read something she made. Okay, sure. I answered and handed me her work. She then left the room and I sat back down on my bed. Kimtisu no Yaiba. I slowly read out the title. It seemed interesting. I slowly opened the book and read the first page. 1 hour later, Kietspovi. I was laying on my bed and scrolling through my phone. I heard a knock on my door. It's Itachi, can I come in? Itachi Oniai-chan asked on the other side of the door. I got off my bed, opened my door and let my brother in. So how is it? I asked with anticipation. There was a proud smile on his face. It's very good, you could make a lot of money with this, he said. Exactly right. So could you help me publish this? I said with excitement. He nodded. Sure, we can do it this week. For the next few days, Itachi Oniai-chan helped me set up my own bank account. He also got me an interview with a famous publishing company in this city by sending a little sample of my manga to them. I also recreated the second volume since my Oniai-chan kept asking me what happens next in the story. Couple of days later, Itachi-chan and I were in front of a tall skyscraper. I was pretty nervous, but since he said that he will be with me and it calms me down a lot. We approaches the front desk and told the receptionist the purpose for our visit. At first, the receptionist was shocked to see my brother behind me, but her professionalism helped her calm down, and she told us to wait for a bit for our interviewers to get ready. After 5 minutes of waiting, we were finally guided to a room, where we saw a man and a woman waiting for us. The receptionist must have told them about my Oni-chan since they weren't surprised to see him here. All 4 of us sat down at a table and started discussing my book. They offered that I get 30% of all the total revenue MHA from the sales. However, thanks to my Oni-chan's negotiation skills, we were able to increase it to 45%. I also told them to keep my name anonymous as I don't want fame to bother me in my daily life. Even if I'm going to be a famous hero in the future, I don't want to be famous now. In the end, both sides are happy with the outcome and I signed a 5-year contract with them. I then shook their hands to finalize the deal. Itachi Oni-chan told me that he will choose an alias for me. Since he already got me this far, I agreed without thinking much about it. We went home and celebrated once again. 3 days later, I received a call from the company saying that my manga have been published. Out of curiosity, I asked what name my Oni-chan had chosen for me. Your brother has chosen the name Sweet Little Princess, they replied. Come again, I said, hoping that there was something wrong with my ears. My face flushed with embarrassment just thinking about the name. I was very annoyed at my Oni-chan, but I decided to forgive him since he was the who helped with everything. Well, as long as no one finds out, then I should be fine, right? I thought with optimism. I went downstairs and saw my family in the living room watching TV. Mom saw me coming down and said in a teasing tone, "Hey, my sweet little princess, what do you want for dinner?" My body twitched and my face got super red. I looked at Itachi Oni-chan with a pissed look. Seems like I couldn't forgive him after all. My fingers twitched and fidgeted with anticipation as I felt like I wanted to beat someone up real bad. Sensing my fury, he stood up and announced, "I gotta go, something came up in my agency." He did some hand signs and his body flickered away. "Oni-chan, come back here right this instant," I shouted and chased after him. Chapter 17, Day at the Mall. Itachi Pov in life always remembers that an angry person will have their power increased tenfold. I thought to myself while sitting in a Seiza position with an extremely large swollen bump on my forehead. I have been in this pose for almost an hour now. My legs felt cramped like they were burning. However, the pain was insignificant compared to the person before me. I glimpsed at my little sister before me. Kaede smiled devilishly and she glared at me as if a predator have spotted prey. If looks could kill right now, I would have already died hundreds of times. "Oni-chan, do you know what you have done wrong?" Her sweet voice lacked the usual tenderness but a deadly venom. This was my last chance. If I choose my words incorrectly, I really would have died today. "I'm sorry, Kaede, will you please forgive me?" I said in the most gentle tone I could muster. Seeing this, my sister's murderous stare quivered. Kaede pouted and averted her gaze. Fine, I suppose as long as you have all learned your lesson," she stuttered cutely. I quietly exhaled with relief. Now for my closing act. I slowly stood up and walked towards her. I then hugged Kaede and whispered into her ears, "Thank you." Her head was still turned away from me, but I can see that her face had gone bright red, and I know that she had let me off the hook. I celebrated in my head that I get to live another day. Time skip. 2 days later, Kipov, after I have punished my Oni-chan, everything went back to normal. I checked online to see how my manga was doing, and I was surprised to see that it has become insanely popular. I can see multiple discussions on the identity of the sweet little princess, and I get embarrassed every time I see it. But there's no point getting angry now, and I just wish that my identity will stay anonymous. I checked my bank account and was even more shocked to see there was already full of cash. I have never seen this much money before. However, it's not much compared to what the rest of my family earns, but it's mine. I got excited and texted Mina and Ochako if they wanted to go shopping with me at the newly built mall located near the Takoba Municipal Beach Park. They agreed and we decided to meet up the next day. A day later. "Ochako-chan, Mina-chan, sorry for being late," I yelled and ran toward my 2 best friends. "It's okay, Ki-chan, your place was pretty far from here after all. Ochako smiled understandingly. Yeah, don't worry about it and let's go. Mina replied with a cheerful tone and we entered the large plaza. The mall has 4 floors with countless shops, and it was packed full of people. The 3 of us looked around the plaza in awe. So what shop should we visit first? Mina asked. How about let's buy some cute dresses for Ki-chan? Ochako suggested. Why would I need more clothes? The clothes I wore right now are fine. I questioned my current outfit wearing a simple t-shirt and pants. Once I started training, I stopped wearing skirts and dresses because they were not suitable for my training. Mina and Ochako stared at me like I'm some sort of alien and without saying a word, they started dragging me to the closest clothes store. Once we arrived, both of them immediately ran in and start picking out new outfits for me. Noticing their enthusiasm while they dug through the rows and rows of women's clothes, I decided to not stop them and prayed that my friends would go easy on me. Done. Mina finally announced after adding one more piece of clothing onto the mountain of fabrics. Both of them then pushed me into a changing room and dumped all the clothes on me. They told me that they won't let me leave until I tried everything. Let's get this over with, I sighed dejectedly. For the next hour, I tried on all the outfits that Ochako and Mina have picked out for me. Every time I changed into a new set, Mina and Ochako judged whether the outfits were suitable for me or not. This is the most exhausting thing I have done in my life. It's even worse than Itachi training. In the end, we picked out 5 sets of clothing, I paid for the outfits and we finally left the store. Seeing my tired expression, Ochako and Mina decided to get something to eat first before continued exploring the rest of the mall. We found a small cafe and sat down at one of the tables. We ordered some cakes and waited for our meal. I ordered a small slice of chocolate cake. Once the food arrives, I placed a little piece in my mouth. The chocolate melted as soon as it touched my tongue, and I tasted an indescribable sweetness. I squealed at the deliciousness of this dessert. By the way, have you heard of the new manga that's been extremely popular? Mina asked and stabbed her strawberry cake with her fork. Hearing this, I accidentally started choking on my food. I recovered from the surprise and tried to sound casual. I heard about it as well. Yeah, apparently it's pretty good and people said it's something they have never seen before. However, the author's name was kind of weird, sweet little princess who would call themselves that. Ochako muttered. At this point my face was very red, and looked at the floor with embarrassment. Is there something wrong, Ki-chan? Mina asked when she saw me blushing. I quickly shook my head. I just thought of how shameless the author must be to call themselves that. I said and accidentally dug a deeper how for myself. I know, right? Ochako said. Mina nodded as well. Yeah, if I was them, I would have been dying with embarrassment. She said and waved her fork around in an exaggerated manner. Anyway, let's go buy the manga after this, it seems very interesting. Ochako happily agreed while I reluctantly nodded. After we finished our food, we started to search for a bookstore. When we located one, we entered and walked toward the manga section. To our astonishment, the manga section was jam-packed with people trying to buy a copy of my book. I felt proud that my manga was very popular, but soon that pride turned into awkwardness when I realized more and more people will be aware of my alias. We squeezed into the crowd and eventually managed to get 2 copies of my manga, one for Ochako and one for Mina. Once we left the bookstore, I discovered a shop that sells merchandise of famous heroes and other hero-related things like posters and cosplay costumes. I remembered that I still haven't got a toy of my Oni-chan yet because I was busy with training, so I brought Ochako and Mina with me and went in. This was also the perfect chance for revenge since he embarrassed me. I spent 10 minutes searching because the store was surprisingly pretty big. At long last, I found a small section in the middle of the store where they specifically sell toys and posters of my Oni-chan. I chuckled at the thought of how he would react seeing me with one, so I bought everything that's related to him. We then spent the rest of the afternoon wandering around the mall buying various things. It was really enjoyable, and it made me remember how fun it was to relax and hang out with my friends. As the sun starts to set, we were walking by the beach with happy expressions. Over the years, the beach transformed from a clean, beautiful beach to a garbage dump. I was saddened by how it turned out as my family used to visit here when I was very young. Hey, what's that? Mina said and pointed at 2 figures in the far distance. They were in a pretty secluded area and you really have to pay attention to your surroundings to spot them. We walked toward the figures to get a closer look. I activated my Sharingan and saw a boy with green hair pulling what appears to be a washing machine while a giant of a man was sitting on top of it. Hey, isn't that All Might? And who is that boy with the green hair? Ochako mumbled as we got closer. That's when I remembered that this is the time where All Might will be training Midoriya to get him ready for his quirk. Before we could react, Mina excitedly ran toward the two. Mina-chan, wait. Ochako and I yelled as we chased after her. All Might, may I have your autograph? Mina said as she showed up next to her. All Might and Midoriya were shocked seeing us here. All Might quickly recovered and nodded. Mina handed him the pen and notepad she always kept in her pockets in case something like this would happen. By the way, what are you doing here and who are you? Mina questioned, and she curiously glanced between Midoriya and All Might. Hearing this, Midoriya started panicking, but I quickly interrupted them. Okay, sorry for bothering you too, see ya. I then swiftly dragged the two of my friends away. What was that for? Mina complained. Mina-chan, I'm just as curious as you are. But it's very rude to intrude on another's personal life. I reasoned. Ki-chan was right. You needed to respect others' people's personal space, Ochako added. Hearing our explanation, she nodded with understanding. Mina rubbed the back of her head and apologized. We forgive her and told her to be more careful next time. Finally, we decided to end the day here as it was starting to get dark. I arrived home at around 6. I'm home, I yelled. My family was in the dining room, and Itachione-chan and Dad were at the dining table waiting for dinner. Welcome back, how's today? Dad asked. Today's really fun. I found something interesting while shopping, I exclaimed and grabbed the toy of Itachione-chan and put it on the table. Seeing what I put on the table, Itachione-chan spits out the water he was drinking. Kid, where did you get that? He asked. They're selling it at most stores that sell hero things. There's posters, toys, and even cosplays. I'm surprised that no one has been stalking you yet, I said in a teasing tone and revealed all the merchandise I purchased. Itachione-chan's face grew redder and redder as I list more items for him. Before he can recover, Mom dealt the final blow. Kid's right, I often see children dressing up as you. Speaking of children, when can your father and I meet our grandchildren? Mom said while she was cooking in the kitchen. Itachione-chan can't take it anymore and his soul left his body. He became depressed for the rest of the night. Chapter 18 UA Entrance Exam 1. Kipyovi, today's the day of the UA entrance exam. I was so excited that I could barely sleep. The exam consists of a writing exam and a practical exam. Itachione-chan told me that many pro heroes including him will be watching the practical exam, so I won't disappoint him and make him proud. I bid my family farewell and took the train to the station that was closest to UA High. I then walked the rest of the way. On the way, I met up with Mina. Ochako texted us that she had already arrived and was waiting for us. After 5 minutes of walking, we finally arrived. Mina and I both stopped at the entrance and we admired the view of our future school. UA High was the #1 school for heroes in Japan. The school was renowned for teaching the best heroes in Japan such as All Might, Endeavor, and of course my Oni-chan. The front of the building was shaped like a giant H, which I thought was pretty cool. When we finished fawning over the school, we entered and tried to locate Ochako. Eventually, we found her talking with Midoriya like in the anime. Hey Ochako-chan! Mina yelled as she and I run toward her. When Mina got close to Ochako, she noticed Midoriya beside her and said, "Oh, the green boy is here as well." Hey! Midoriya shyly said, and became embarrassed by being called the green boy. Hello, glad to see you again, I said and caught up with the group. We didn't say our names last time. I'm Kidachiha and this girl here is Mina Ashido. I introduced myself and Mina. Hello. Mina greeted me with a happy tone. I'm Izuku Midoriya, he said while embarrassed. Well, it's nice knowing you, Midoriya-kun, but the exam's going to start soon, so we gotta go, I explained while running towards the main building. Bye-bye. Mina waved and chased after me. See ya, Midoriya-kun, Ochako said and followed us. Once we go inside the building, a UA staff told us that the written exam will start first. We received a paper that said which room our exam will be in. Sadly, Ochako, Mina, and I were assigned to a different room. We wished each other good luck before going to our designated exam rooms. It took me a while to find the exam room that I was allocated. Once I entered, I found my seat and sat down. I then observed the other students in the classroom. I was surprised and excited to see so many familiar characters from the anime. However, I reminded myself that I have to first pass the entrance exam first before I should go make friends with them. I waited for 10 minutes before a UA staff walks in. "That's the pro hero Vlad King," I exclaimed and watched him enter while holding a stack of papers. "Hello everyone. Welcome to the UA entrance exam. First, you will do a written exam to test your general knowledge in all subjects. There will also be some questions that you have to explain on what will be the best solution to a scenario that heroes will commonly encounter," he explained in a calm tone. He walked to each desk and placed the exam paper. Once he finished, Vlad King returned to the front of the classroom. "The written exam will now begin. You got 2 hours," he announced. The sudden commencement of our exams caught us off guard. Everyone began to frantically flipping the pages and solving the questions. I took a deep breath and glanced at the panic expression on the students' faces. "Calm down, Kaede," I whispered. I slowly reached for my pen. My heart thumped nervously in my chest. "All right, let's do this," I muttered and opened to the first page. 2 hours later. "Time's up, put down your pens," Vlad King announced. "Phew, finally done." I sighed in relief and wiped the imaginary sweat off my forehead. The test in general was surprisingly very easy, however. The last few questions that asked you what's the best thing to do in certain situations as a hero gave me mild headaches. I don't know where my choices were correct, but now I just have to pray that I did well. Vlad King then guided us to a large auditorium. I found Mina and Ochako and we sat together near the front of the auditorium. More and more students started to enter, and I start to see other familiar faces such as Bakugo, Shoji, and Kirishima. While I was trying to search for more MHA characters, the light suddenly starts to dim and all the spotlights shined onto the big stage. "Hello everyone and welcome to the UA entrance exam." A tall slim man with long blonde hair that was spiked upwards, a small brown mustache, wearing orange sunglasses suddenly appeared on the stage and said, "I'm the pro hero Present Mike that will be a staff in UA High." Present Mike announced, "Today, I will be explaining how the practical exam will work. During the exam, you will conduct a mock battle in an artificial urban setting. Your job is to use your quirk and defeat robot villains deployed throughout the examination area in 10 minutes. Every robot you defeat will earn points. The more points you earn, the higher the chances you will be accepted into the school," he explained. He then points to the large screen behind him. The screen turns on and Present Mike explained how each robot will have different point. The higher point the robot, the stronger it was. He then explained that during the exam, one 0-pointer robot will be deployed. Present Mike said that the 0-pointers are the strongest out of all the robots in the exam. Finally, he wished us good luck and we were escorted to our exam area. Since there were thousands of students participating, the tests were split into a couple of groups. Each group will be tested in a different place. I got to be in the same group as Ochako, but Mina got placed into different group from us. I can see that Ochako was nervous, so I patted her back and gave her a reassuring smile. She nodded and smiled back at my encouragement. Suddenly Present Mike's voice played through the speaker. "Okay ladies and gentlemen, the villain bots have been deployed. The exam will start at 3, 2, 1, go." Chapter 19 UA Entrance Exam 2. 1. Go. I immediately built up chakra in my legs and bolted forward at an insane speed. Everyone was shocked at my speed, but soon they snapped out of their daze and chased after me. I jumped from roof to roof and searched for my targets. I eventually located a group of 1 and 2 pointers. There wasn't anyone there yet, and I used this chance to earn some quick points. I used Sharingan and analyzed my opponents. I discovered that the 2 pointers have weak points in their neck while the 1 pointer has weak points in their chest. I pulled out 4 shurikens from the pouch strapped to my sides. Once they were in range, I then threw the 4 shurikens toward the robots. 2 of the shurikens hit 2 1-pointers square in the chest, destroying them instantly, and 2 other shurikens sliced off the heads of the 2-pointer robot. I unsheathed my tanto and charged toward the rest of the group. With every swing of my blade, a villain bot was destroyed. Before I knew it, the entire group of robots was decimated. I stood among the pile of robot corpses and wiped the dirty oil off my blade. "Help!" Someone suddenly yelled in the distance. I heard someone calling for help and I ran towards the sound. Once there, I saw a student running away from 5 3-pointer bots. I did a sequence of hand signs and said, "Kyun no Jutsu." A ball made out of electricity appeared in my hand, and I threw it toward the group of robots. The lightning ball hit the bot in the front, short-circuiting it and causing the bot to crash into the other 3 pointers. I nodded in satisfaction before looking for more bots to destroy. Third POV, Practical Exam Control Room. Inside the control panel, multiple pro heroes were watching the students completing the practical exams. They were judging and discussing which students shows the promise of a hero. These heroes include Eraserhead, Vlad King, Ectoplasm, All Might, Endeavor, Best Jeanist, Present Mike, Cementos, Recovery Girl, Red Crow, and of course Principal Nizu. There's a lot of promising young heroes this year. Nizu muttered while observing the screen. The rest of the heroes nodded, agreeing with his judgment. Your little sister shows a lot of talent, Itachi. Best Jeanist commented when they saw Ki demolishing a small group of 2- and 3-pointer robots. I did personally train her after all, Itachi explained with a calm expression, but they can all sense the smugness in his voice. Endeavor smirked and said, Humph Siscon, /N. I felt bad for Dabi and Shoto, so I wanted Endeavor to be a good dad and husband. However, he will be a major tsundere. That also means that Dabi, Toya, won't be in the League of Villains. Shut it, tsundere, Itachi replied. They both looked at each other with sparks in their eyes. All Might smiled wryly and calmed both of them down. However, in All Might's mind, he's anything but calm. Midoriya, his successor, still hasn't scored any points as all the robots are getting killed quickly. And he's very worried that his successor won't pass the exam. Young Midoriya, you got this. All Might cheered for Midoriya in his mind as all the heroes put their focus back on the screen. After a few more minutes, Principal Nizu turned to the teachers. I think it's time to unleash the 0-pointer? Present Mike nodded and announced into the microphone. Now the 0-pointer will be deployed into the field. He typed some commands into the keyboard in the panel, and suddenly a gigantic bot was let loose in all of the practical exam arenas. Now we will see how the candidates will deal with this situation. Will they run or fight? Nizu said with amusement. Kipovi. There was not much time left and I tried to destroy as many villain bots as I can. Suddenly Present Mic's voice sounded through the speaker. Now the 0-pointer will be deployed into the field, he declared. Then I heard lots of screaming and shouting not so far away. I followed the commotion and spotted a huge robot the size of a skyscraper destroying the buildings with its fists, while chasing after the other students. It's the 0-pointer runaway. That's too big, I can't handle something like that, people shouted. I jumped onto the roof of one of the buildings and started observing the chaos. I then saw something that terrified me. One of my best friends, Ochako, has her foot trapped under debris. She looked horrified as the 0-pointer gets closer and closer. Ochako-chan. I cried out and dashed to my friend. The 0-pointer suddenly brought its fists towards me, forcing me to dodge away. It then put its focus back on Ochako and reached out its hand. I panicked and held my breath as I won't get to her in time. Abruptly, the bot's hand was launched away and it was pushed back due to the force. In front of Ochako stood Midoriya with his right arm broken. I let out a breath of relief that Ochako was not harmed and thanked Midoriya in my mind. I huffed and expressed my anger. Chakra transmitted into my lower body and with a single leap, I reached the 0-pointer's head level. I raised my fist back and moved as much chakra as I can into my hands. Don't you dare hurt Ochako-chan. I roared and punched the bot square in the face. Its head exploded and broke into many pieces. Its body arched backward and collapsed onto the ground. Shunshin no Jutsu. While doing multiple hand signs, my body flickered and arrived next to Ochako and Midoriya. Ochako-chan, are you okay? I asked with a worried expression. I'm fine, but Midoriya-kun's hurt, Ochako said, and she used her quirk to untrap herself from the debris. I turned around and saw Midoriya laying on the ground in pain. I knelt next to him and examined his arm. All the bones in his right arm were broken and the limb have turned into a horrifying shade of purple. I can ease the pain, but I can't fix your arm, I explained and started using medical ninjutsu on him. Midoriya gritted his teeth and nodded. Sweat dripped down from his head and I could tell the pain was intense. Thankfully, he seemed to relax once my medical jutsu began to work its magic. While I was trying my best to ease his pain, Present Mic's voice sounded through the speaker again. The practical exam has ended, folks. Thank you for participating and you will get your results in 10 days. He said, and the gate to the arena opened. Soon Recovery Girl and some UA staff ran toward us carrying a stretcher. and they carried Midoriya away. When they left, I tightly hugged Ochako and told her how scared I was. She patted my back and comforted me, saying it was not my fault. After I finally calmed down, we left the exam area and met up with Mina. We then went home and waited to receive our results in 10 days. 10 days later, Mina and I were currently with Ochako sitting together in her room. In each of our hands we're holding the letter we received from UA. We looked at each other, nodded, and opened the envelopes at the same time. Immediately, 3 small disc-like machines fell out onto the floor, and a hologram of All Might. "Hello, I'm All Might," All Might said in the projection. He then talked about how he will be working at UA starting now. Hearing this, all 3 of us, especially Mina, got very excited. Japan's strongest hero working here. We all thought with enthusiasm. He talked about the practical exam and the hidden rescue points that we were also graded on. All Might then pointed at a screen behind him, and it showed the leaderboard of the practical exam. On the leaderboard, surprisingly, I got the highest score in the exam with a score of 86 points. Ochako and Mina also got pretty high scores, with Ochako scoring 65 points and Mina scoring 67 points. We were very happy that we passed and got into UA, and we raised our fists in the air in celebration. Fortunately, we all got into the same class of 1A for the hero course. Uchiha Kaede, I welcome you to UA High. Ashido Mina, I welcome you to UA High. Uraraka Ochako, I welcome you to UA High. All Might exclaimed from the 3 holograms. We did it. The 3 of us said in unison, and we high-fived each other. Chapter 21st Day and Quirk Apprehension Test. Today's the first day of my time at UA. I wore the standard UA uniform that consists of a long-sleeve button white shirt, a gray jacket with blue-green stripes, a red tie, and a dark blue-green pleated skirt. /N. I copied this off the wiki cause they described it perfectly. Mina, Ochako, and I met up and we walked to the school together. Upon arriving, we can see many other new students. Some of them looked nervous while others looked extremely excited. Mina and I fell into the excitement category while Ochako fell into the nervous category. I spotted Midoriya looking anxious in the distance. I ran up to him and greeted him. "Hi, Midoriya-kun," I said. "Oh, hello, Uchiha-san," he replied nervously. Mina and Ochako followed after me and also greeted Midoriya. "I want to thank you for helping Ochako-chan that day," I said and bowed as thanks. Ochako got embarrassed hearing me thanking him and Midoriya got all flustered. "Well, we still got some time before class, so want to explore the school together?" I asked. Mina and Ochako happily agreed, and Midoriya hesitated before slowly nodding. When we entered, I did some hand signs and said, "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu." As 2 puffs of clouds exploded behind me and 2 clones of me appeared. "Kaede number 2, go explore this way, and Kaede number 3, go explore that way," I said while pointing in 2 different directions. Both clones saluted with a smile before walking away. "Wow, what was that?" Midoriya asked with excitement and curiosity. "That's one of the abilities of my quirk," I responded with a cheeky smile. "One of the abilities?" He pried further. "Midoriya-kun, it's not smart to reveal all of your powers, okay?" I spoke in a mischievous tone. Hearing this, he felt embarrassed and apologized. We then walked around the school before going to our class. Before entering, I dispelled my clones and absorbed all the information they managed to gather, and I opened the door to my class. Third POV. The atmosphere in the classroom was pretty tense. Nobody knows each other and they sat in their seats in silence. Suddenly the door to the classroom was swung open with force. Standing in the doorway was a girl with black hair tied in a ponytail, big black eyes, a small nose and a mouth. She was very beautiful and there was a sweet, friendly aura surrounding her. "Hello everyone, I'm Kaede Uchiha, let's all be friends, okay?" she announced with a bright smile. "Cute," everyone in the classroom unitedly thought as they observed her. Kaede then begins to walk around the room introducing herself to everyone in the classroom. By the end of it, she had made a good impression on everyone in the room. While Kaede was talking with people in the class, the door was opened again, and a boy with sandy blonde hair stood there. He has a scowl on his face as he observed the class. Midoriya hesitantly called out. He ignored Midoriya and approached Kaede. The rest of the class held their breath and they felt a sense of concern for Kaede. He stared at her and his frown deepened. The classroom was silent and the atmosphere was so tense that it could be cut with a knife. I will destroy you and become the best hero in the world. He said with hostility and arrogance. Kivavi. I greeted everyone in the room and I easily befriended all of them. Something that surprised me was that Todoroki acted more confident, and he doesn't have a scar on the left side of his face. He still has his usual cold expression though. His childhood must have been better than before and I was very happy to know that. I observed the room and found out that Mineta, the purple midget, wasn't there. Probably due to me being chosen. He didn't get into 1A. Suddenly the door was opened and a boy with blonde hair entered. He looked around before spotting me and started moving toward me with an ugly expression on his face. I stared at the boy who I assume was Bakugo, was now standing in front of me. I will destroy you and become the best hero in the world. He said with hostility and arrogance. Hearing this, I became silent for a while before resuming smiling. Then let's be rivals, okay? I replied and reached out my hand for a handshake. Seeing this, he was stunned. Tisk, he sounded before rejecting my handshake and walking to his seat. I can tell that other people were not in a good mood seeing the disrespect he shows, but were all suddenly interrupted by a voice in the corner of the room. Can you guys talk any louder? The voice complained. I looked at the far corner and there was a giant yellow caterpillar laying there. The caterpillar suddenly opened and a man with long black hair appeared. He was wearing baggy black clothes with loose bandages wrapping around his neck. We all looked at him wondering who he was. I'm your homeroom teacher Shota Aizawa. He introduced himself with a sleepy tone. This guy's our homeroom teacher? We all thought in unison. This is a bit sudden, but go change to your sports uniform and come meet me at the field. He continued before walking away. 10 minutes later, we changed into our sports uniform and met Aizawa-sensei at the outdoor field. When he saw us all arrive, he nodded and said, "We will be having a quirk assessment test." Quirk assessment test? We yelled out in unison. I already know the plot, but it's still fun to act along. What about the entrance ceremony? Ochako asked. Aizawa-sensei then explained how heroes don't have time for leisure events like the entrance ceremony. He said the quirk assessment test was an experiment to see how comfortable we were with our quirks. Uchiha, come out, he said. Why? I answered with a slightly nervous tone and moved to the front of the group. You scored the highest in the practical exam. Say, what's your highest record for your softball throw during junior high? Aizawa-sensei asked. 50 meters. I responded. Aizawa-sensei nodded. Now try again, but this time with your quirk, he said. I walked up to the softball field and got ready to throw. Build up chakra into my arms and unleashed it all once as soon I throw the ball. A big shockwave was generated from the speed of the ball and everyone stumbled back a bit. 948 meters, as expected of the Sister of Red Crow. Aizawa-sensei smirked and said, Sister of Red Crow? Everyone except for Mina and Ochako screamed out. Everybody, except for Bakugo, Mina, and Ochako, crowded around me and start asking questions. I got dizzy with all the questioning, but thankfully Aizawa-sensei saved me. He then started calling names in order to repeat the process. Everyone got pretty excited, but his next words shocked them. By the way, whoever got last will be expelled. Nanny! Everyone shouted and they all got serious. Just like canon, Bakugo scored 705.2 meters. Midoriya scored 705.3 meters, but he broke his finger and Ochako scored infinity with her quirk. No matter how hard I try, I can't beat infinity. We have done other tests such as the 50-meter dash, grip strength, standing long jump, repeated sidesteps, sit-UPS, seated toe touch, and distance run. Thanks to my training, I scored top marks in all of them. Just like in the anime, Midoriya got dead last and was extremely scared. But then Aizawa-sensei said that he was just joking about expelling it. Yaoyorozu then explained that they won't be actually doing something ridiculous like that, and that Aizawa-sensei was just encouraging us to do our best. But only I knew that Aizawa-sensei was serious about the expulsion, but he changed his mind. Well, I'm smart enough to not say it out loud. After that whole event, we're finally able to go home, and I have successfully got through the first day of UA. That's the end of this tale for now. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in part 2. Check out my own fanfictions that I'm writing currently if you want. Linked in the description. Peace.